component of ethical governance, the topic of ethical. Good evening and welcome for today's session. So today we are going to start with the component of ethical governance, the topic of ethical governance, which is associated with so many important sub-dimensions from where questions are asked. So did you go through the material that has been uploaded? Did you see that other than like the notes pertaining to emotional intelligence, there is the segment pertaining to probity in governance and ethics in public administration has been uploaded. So did you go through the notes related to ethics in public administration? Did you notice that? Okay, so if you will be downloading ethics in public administration, it is then that you will be able to see what is going to be taught today onward. Okay, just cross this possibility of ethics in public administration. When you don't download it, just see that inside the notes is the same. In early morning, there was a glitch. The topic said ethics in public administration, and when students opened it, there was the notes of emotional intelligence uploaded yet again. I requested for a check. So I hope the content is related to ethics in public administration. Have you downloaded and cross-checked it, all of you? Yes. So good evening all of you who are wishing, and welcome all of you as we are moving ahead with it. Yes, you've checked it. All right, Payal, it is the same. Glad to know that. So with respect to this, when we are heading to the component of ethics in rules, regulations, laws with respect to a source of ethics in governance, this is a topic which we have already reflected earlier. If you can recall, we reflected upon this given subtopic very briefly when we were connecting with ethics and law, when I was discussing that there can be issues which can be ethical but illegal, and there can be issues which are legal but unethical. Can you recall that, all of you? Can you discuss that? SME, please support Anjali, because that has been discussed in great detail yesterday from the perspective of a lot of thinkers also. I connected it. So my image is not visible. Well, Varsha and Basit, if you can just again log in once again. Yes, Abhishek, very good. It is associated with Salt March. So Salt March was illegal but ethical. And how about something being legal but unethical? Can you recall the image that I had posted? Okay, so you can think of homosexuality. Okay, it is legal but it is unethical considered in the society. Slavery, very good. Okay, so you can think of that. Yes. Okay, all right, fine. So we will be reflecting upon the co-relationship this time more exhaustively when we are discussing about this given subsegment. So law and conscience, these are the two sources which are guiding human beings with respect to their actions, how they ought to behave. Okay, so action is guided by law and conscience. There is a difference between the two. Law is associated with external locus of control when we speak of it, right? And when we are talking about conscience, then conscience is associated with internal locus of control, because it is giving from within the idea of right and wrong. It is giving from within what ought to be followed at all given, we can say, time periods when we are discussing about this. So with respect to law and conscience, when we are talking about how they are inspiring us, how they are shaping and designing our choices, how it is determining our possibilities, we all can reflect upon the given sub-dimension, that how law and conscience is continually shaping our paradigms, our possibilities, on the basis of which we can see that we get an idea of what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is evil, and that is how we all tend to connect with the possibilities of it. Only video, okay, not, it is getting stuck. Okay, all right, I'll refresh once again. I hope all of you can at least hear. You were able to hear. I'm just refreshing it. Is it fine now, people? Is it better? A while goes erratic. Though we have an exclusive line, means no one shares this LAN cable. Like so many issues are going on. At least we are able to run the session smoothly. That is something which we can bless for. So that's the issue. It is again getting stuck. I don't know how to fix the issue. So it's fine. Okay, so let us just cope up with what is happening. I cannot do anything other than refreshing. I'm just refreshing the system. So I was discussing about law and conscience, right? So I was discussing about how law sources of action, two sources of our action, and how law is associated with external locus of control and conscience is related to internal locus of control. So law is by then an outside actor, like it is coerced from outside, like the judge, the court of law, right? And when we are speaking of this given subdimension related to conscience, so conscience is within you, where you're within, like your voice from within. It is, that's why it is called like the inner voice, the sixth sense, the intuition, the gut feeling. All right, so that's what we can connect it with. So law is used in ethics and is different from the notion of law in physics. Okay, when we are talking about law over here in ethics, it has to deal with moral connotation. It has not to deal with the connotation which you understand, like law in physics and law in chemistry. So any natural science, when it discusses about law, it is about a universal principle. Here we are not dealing it with universal principle, we are dealing it with the moral connotation. So the word lex, that is coming from the Latin word law and from Latin word ligare, we can see it, which means to bind. Okay, so to bind, and that is something which is inducing the possibility of, we can say, the restraints which are imposed upon us, that how we need to act. It is something which is imposing obligation, like how we ought to behave, how we ought to do, how we ought to live. So that is associated with an obligation. And when we further move ahead beyond obligation, we all can see that it is something which is also like helping us to conform to our human nature. Conform to our human nature means that's how we ought to behave, that's how we ought to stick to how we need to like be there. Okay, stylus is not working on PPT, it is like working. I'm constantly writing, but it's okay, you take a printout, and when you take a printout you'll get it. This problem was also happening early in the morning because of, like, the rains and incessant water logging. The connectivity is not up to mark, we are aware of it, but and it is from the back end, it is not associated from our end. This is all I can say. Now, so with respect to this, when we are talking about SME, please help me, I don't know how to tidy up the situation. So just help me out with this given situation. If I'm supposed to do something, I'll do, but as far as I know, other than refreshing, I can't do much. Okay, now with respect to this, it must be like physically and morally possible for us to like obey laws. When we speak of it, it must not only be just, but along with being just, we are equally burdened. Everyone is supposed to follow the law. It is for common good. When we follow law, it is for common good. That's something like we can connect with the idea of law. So as we all are like reflecting upon this given sub-dimension, we all can see that when we are connecting law with the possibility of conscience, so we can see that law in present times is associated with positive human laws. Okay, it is connected with what we ought to do. It is something which we all can consider is nothing but it is associated with the ethical standards which a society expects us to comply with. Okay, so it is an ethical standard of the society. That's what we can consider it associated with. Again, we can see that there are sanctions against the violation when we are like not following the law. When we are violating the law, then there will be sanctions if there is violation, and that's how there are enforceable punishments. Okay, enforceable punishments with respect to action, inaction, what we do, what we perform, that's also there. We can speak of it. Again, we can see that although law is an ordinance, when we are again connecting with this given dimension, that law is what? It is an ordinance that is resulting out of human reason. Another keyword is human reason, because we reason out the laws, we objectively reflect upon what is rational for the larger society to live, what is something in consonance with the public good. Okay, so when we reflect upon that given possibility, that also can be brought over here. Okay, so regulations, when we are speaking of it, regulations are associated with helping us to clarify the laws with specific intent. Okay, so the purpose of law is what? To promote common good, to promote societal welfare, right? It is to protect individual rights, and that's why we all have laws around us, to create that sense of guidance, that sense of, we can say, possibility, to bring in balance, right? So when we are talking about rule of law, we can connect it with the given dimension that the rule makers, they have not violated natural law or civil law. And we can also see that sometimes when we are talking about it, sometimes they circumvent, okay, sometimes they circumvent what civil law clearly states. Whatever the civil law is stating, that this is how it ought to be, this is how things ought to articulate. So we can see that law is something associated with it. Law is like giving us an idea that what ought to be followed, what rules, regulations ought to be respected, in what situations we need to respond or react or enact, in what possible manner. All right, so that's something which all of us can connect with this given dimension. So with respect to this, we are, when we are further substantiating, we can see that as with laws, a person has no obligation to obey an immoral rule. So suppose there is a law and you feel that it is going to be immoral, like for example slavery, there was a time when it was legal, and if someone feels that it is, though it is legal, it is immoral, and in that situation if a person is opposing that law, then it is not problematic per se. Okay, then the violator has somewhere acted on the basis of ethics, the violation is ethical, like salt satyagrah I shared. Or suppose if, when General Dyer had ordered the killing of the innocent people at Jallianwala Bagh, if some soldier would have said that I do not want to shoot, I choose to quit upon my job, but I won't shoot, in that situation the person must have done something illegal, but that would have been in the light of moral. Okay, the person must have, in the process of obedience, the person might not have lost the moral compass, and thus that disobedience would have qualified to like illegality, but it would have been guided by morality. I hope you are understanding this. Okay, so I hope you all are understanding this given dimension. Okay, so Sargun, your question yet needs to reflect. Rise. All right, fine. I'll try to bring in the context once again because it's essential for all of you. So, I was distinguishing between law and conscience. I was sharing that when we are discussing about our set of action that we perform, we can distinguish between law and conscience from the perspective that law is something which is helping the actor to work upon a certain situation or a certain thing towards someone on the basis of some external orders. Okay, whereas conscience is associated with her inner voice. You get guided about what ought to be done, like, and how you ought to be doing it. Again, I had given some information related to how law is coming into existence. So we can see that how law is associated with the term ligare, which literally means to bind. And when we are bound by a specific situation, we are also bound by obligations. Obligations, how we ought to behave, how we ought to, like, exercise our thought process in a specific situation. So I was sharing that, when you are legal, you are not only following the law, you are also following the act of justice, and you are trying to bring in equality, whereby it is not associated with individual good or private good, it is associated with public good in general. Okay, further I substantiated with respect to this area that when we are speaking of going legal, or when we are like being formal about following the law, in that situation we can see that this law is different from the law which is considered in the domain of chemistry or natural science. sense. This law is associated with choosing the right thing to do. It is related to positive human laws, means what human beings ought to do in a specific situation, the obligations that individuals ought to follow in a specific situation. Okay, we can consider they are like sanctions. When you prohibit, when you discourage people from doing certain specific things, so they are more like sanctions, sanctions which should never be violated, sanctions which are imposed and you ought to follow it in all given situations, right? So when we are speaking of the given possibility associated with what ought to be followed in all given situations, we all can connect it with the component of sanctions, and we can all connect it with what ought to be followed, what is enforceable, and what is to be duly considered, to be duly adhered to. So when we are speaking of this given dimension, uh, okay, please SME support her with the notes. Anjali is struggling with the notes. So when we are speaking of this given dimension, we all can connect it with, like, let's say, the component of command with respect to action and inaction. Both the given possibilities can be associated with the component of law, because law encourages us to behave in a specific manner, and at the same time laws can discourage us. It can discourage us to enact upon a situation or to behave in a specific way. Okay, so that's also something which we all can connect with. Further, when we are talking about the given dimension of law, we can also think of, like, let's say, the possibility of law from the perspective of how we are reflecting upon a specific situation, in which terms we are reflecting. So law will bring in objectivity, specificity, rationality. There will be clarity regarding what has to be done. And when we are talking about conscience, conscience is based on interpretation. There's one more thing. Law is constantly guiding, as I told you, it is guiding to common good. It is also guiding us to general social welfare. So it is giving administrators what are the do's and don'ts for the common public, for the people, for them to follow. Okay, it is also laying down the regulations with respect to punishable acts, with respect to prohibitive acts. So punishment, prohibition, all that is also created by law. Again, we can understand, last but not the least, I said this given statement that violators may have acted ethically. And when we say that violators who have acted, let's say, ethically, but they have violated any law, in that situation the person has no obligation to obey an immoral rule. Like, we can consider salt satyagraha. So if Gandhi is disobeying a law which is illegal, but at the same times it's moral to do, then in that situation it is not problematic, it is not immoral, it is not in the light of creating massive problems for the society per se. Again, with respect to this given sub segment pertaining to how people are behaving in a specific situation, and how we all can see the situation unfold before all of us, we all can connect it with how we can reflect it with respect to how a person might have behaved if the person was protesting against Jallianwala Bagh. So if a soldier in the Indian army would have protested against General Dyer, in that situation the person must have done something illegal, but what the person would have chosen would be associated with a moral act. Okay, so it's not necessary that everything that is illegal may be immoral. If you are doing something illegal but it is in the light of morality, then there is no problem in violating such a law. Okay, after reflecting upon this given segment, I said that it is virtually impossible for any human being to know all the laws. It is possible that people are not really aware about all possible laws. So we need to see laws from the deontological and teleological perspectives as well. When we speak of teleological perspective, all of you know that teleology is associated with, we can say, ends based approach or goals based approach. So ends or goals oriented approach means when you are focusing that what goal you have to achieve. So from law or with the usage of law, what is the goal that we aspire to achieve? So with the law, what we aspire to achieve truly, if we reflect upon it, it is the human values, the broader human values that we aspire to achieve via law when we are following the law. So we can consider that they are not only laws are not only for governing our human behavior or our intellect, it is also something which is helping us to understand what is right, what is wrong, and it is also giving us a sense of reflection. It is giving us a sense of purpose. Okay, so it is giving us a sense of purpose, it is giving us a sense of reflection. So whatever we are doing under this given approach, we are reflecting upon we can say achievement of specific values. Okay, values which are loaded with information, reflection, judgment, decision and action. These are the criterias on the basis of which we can consider if a law is based on specific values or not, if a law is ethical or not, if the law has to be followed by, or one should abide by it in all circumstances. Okay, so mistake of fact is pardonable, but mistake of law, yeah, exactly. Mistake of fact is pardonable, but mistake of law, if the law itself is unethical, then in that situation, Prashant, it is suggested that it is not something which is unethical that you have done. As I said, that if someone is exercising slavery and slavery is legal, but in that situation, if someone opposes that I do not want to get into sale and purchase of human beings, and what you are doing is unethical, then in that situation, what the person is talking about is illegal, but it is in the light of ethics. So there's nothing wrong while dealing with it. Okay, so I hope you are getting clarity regarding it. So why do we have due process of law? To undergo the reflection about the rationality behind the law, the relevance of the law, and how it needs to be followed in a systematic order, because with the systematization you are able to cross check even at microscopic level what needs to be followed, and at what finer levels the law has been abided by, or it has been we can say not been followed. So that's why is alcohol legal when it is not good? Alcohol is legal because the society also needs commercial, we can say, growth, and alcohol brings a lot of tax money. Okay, so there is the scope of making quick buck by any government. That's why alcohol is legal despite the harm. Technically speaking, Ashmi, the way you are getting affected about alcohol, so is with sugar. Sugar is another addictive substance, as addictive as cocaine, and sugar is something which is making India the diabetic capital of the world. Sugar is responsible for a lot of lifestyle diseases, but how many of us protest for sugar as we protest for other addictive substances? Right, so that's something. Why to have differential ethics towards things? Healthy eating, healthy living, like when we are speaking of this given dimension, that also needs to be understood. Okay, so when we are seeing that this approach means the teleological approach. Okay, so the teleological approach. So the teleological approach makes sense and is a valid response to the fact and knowledge that all laws and rules, knowing all the laws and knowing all the rules is impossible, but it is possible for us to know the values, the basic values that a society is guided by, the ethical principles that a society is guided by. If we are guided by those ethical principles and values, there will be a high chance that we won't be unknowingly also violating upon a law. That's what it is saying. All right. So with respect to this, but sugar have no large scale substitution. We do have Labdhi. Sugar has a massive large scale substitution. You can just check out what are the substitutes to sugar which are naturally available and which we are into eating. And like for example, shakkar is one thing whereby you are, yes, jaggery is also there, shakkar is also there, mishri is also there, and those possibilities can also be incorporated. Anyway, so we are when we are discussing about it, no, not saccharine. Saccharine can decrease the bone density, Abhishek, and it is very harmful. So any saccharine loaded chewing gums, those spearmint gums and this and that, they look very cool, but if you see that it is sugar free, just see what is added as a substitute for sugar. If it is like saccharine, no, it's poisonous, it's sheer poison. So yes, there is stevia, and stevia leaves are, or stevia is one of the most healthiest alternatives to making the drink or making the food like sweet. So that's there. Varman, you should have attended all the sessions properly with respect to understanding deontology and teleology, though I'll be explaining what is deontology. So everyone can understand that with respect to this. Yes, aspartame also, another problem. Aspartame is there in one of the candies. I don't know which candy. I had purchased it and my cousin was like, you feel it's healthy? I was like, yeah, there's no sugar. It's like, notice very carefully, there's aspartame, and aspartame is cancer causing substance. So, yeah, true, that's there, and it is also like carcinogenic. All right, fine. Diet Coke. All right, we are not discussing about sugar. It's just that one of your friends raised a question related to alcohol and how ethical it is for the government to make money from alcohol. So I said that there are so many things which we are consuming which are colossally harmful, and the government is making a lot of money. It is employing a lot of people related to these sectors. That's why tobacco also, the component of tobacco was also debated. I remember when we were discussing about drug abuse and alcoholism in one of the earlier social issues classes. Earlier means it is associated with the like the old syllabus. So at that time when ethics was introduced, so one of the students clubbed this question of ethics and connected it with this given topic, and then had asked related to this drug abuse and tobacco consumption, that when this is there, why is government selling all these products, even all these pan masala, Vimal pan masala and all that? Why is it being sold? And this 1 rupee or 2 rupee pouches, they are sheer poison. Then why is it consumed so heavily? How come it is permissible? You see how much money these pan masala companies are making, crores of rupees. You won't be able to imagine the kind of bungalows that they have, the kind of property that they have. So yes, it is like imposing sin tax and like gaining money. True, I accept that. All right, so that's what all of us can connect with. That's why alcohol is not under GST. Yo, but you do pay taxes with respect to other segment of it. If purchase and sale of human is immoral, then why trading of animals is not immoral? Because we don't impose the same laws on animals as that of human beings. Animals have been considered to be assisting human affairs, human activities over the time period, over the history, and they continue to assist even today, especially in agrarian societies, in agrarian economies. So once you start talking about animal rights, then you'll have to talk about pisciculture, sericulture, and various such, we can say, cultivable activities which are associated with economy and food, and then it will create a lot of challenge as per what ought to be lived. All right. Anyway, with respect to this, when we are further moving ahead with the deontological approach, so deontology is duty based. So duty or means based approach. Okay. So duty based or means based approach. So when we are speaking of deontology, so deontology is focusing on what? So it is focusing on, we can see, laws and rules. It is associated with principal guidance for public administration on morality, and we recognize laws and rules, regulations are insufficient. They are insufficient because without conscience, we won't be able to understand the rationale behind a law, that why a law ought to be followed. What is the, we can say, relevance of following a law in totality? So now we need to examine conscience as a mechanism for deciding what is right, what is wrong. So when you focus upon the purpose, why to follow a law? So we need to follow a law because now you're thinking about the means, because it keeps your conscience clear, because it is giving you a reason, a logic, a humane concern, a humane explanation regarding the possibility of why following the law is the right thing to do. Okay. So that is associated with why. And teleology is associated with what is achieved. So what is achieved is teleology, and why to follow is associated with deontology. So the path, the means is deontology, the goal is associated with teleology. All right. Now, So with respect to this, when we further move ahead, we can reflect upon conflict between law and ethics. So law and ethics, though I have discussed this given segment, we need to understand that it is the conflict is arising. So this conflict arises, okay, arises when conditions, under which laws become ethics, or under which ethics becomes laws, I should say, the opposite way, under which ethics becomes a law is not congenial, to transformation. Means it has become a part of the ethics, but legal acceptance is yet to happen. So under such a conflict, both laws and ethics can go on the wrong side, all right. So there can be two conditions: when it is something is legal but unethical, and second condition can be when something is illegal but ethical, right? So when we are speaking of this component with respect to legal but unethical, so what can be associated with something being legal but unethical? Like let's say something being legal, so we can think of the possibility of death sentence, right? Death sentence. We can speak of legal but unethical. You can think of this temple entry. So example, temple entry at Sabrimala, right? You can also think of, when we are talking about individual freedom, then curfew, right? We can think legal but unethical, widow remarriage, legal but unethical, intercaste marriage, legal but unethical, single woman or single mother, like let's say single mother, legal but unethical. Section 377, or rather section 377, we can speak of LGBTQ relationships, legal but unethical, okay. Yes, so we can think of these given possibilities. Then we come up with illegal, something which is illegal but it is accepted. Ethical means socially accepted, okay, socially accepted as per the norms, customs, traditions, and under this component, illegal but ethical. For example, you can think of triple talaq, you can think of dowry, here legal but unethical, we can also say live-in relationships, you can also give senicide over here, that is killing the elderly, right? So senicide, illegal but ethical. Child marriage, in those societies where child marriage is accepted and it is preferred that a child should get married early. Khap panchayat, which is not legally elected panchayat, which is based on the, we can consider caste politics and caste dynamics of a given region. So khap panchayat, right? So that's how you can consider. And when you are reflecting upon such possibilities, like I'm giving khap panchayat. So with respect to this, when we are discussing about it, we all can, therefore we can write down, therefore conflict can be detrimental for a society. Conflict between the two can be detrimental for the society. Why? Because when people will be confused, it will lead to anarchy, confusion, unrest. Detrimental for the society as it may lead to anarchy, unrest, confusion, right? So that's what you can talk about. Yes, you can think of Jallikattu. You can connect it with salt satyagraha. Yes, you can think of examples pertaining to begging. Why temple entry at Sabrimala is unethical? Because Rajan, the society which is following a specific religion, it considers that there are certain rituals that needs to be followed pertaining to different temples. I mean, if you start smearing, like let's say, vermilion, okay, sindoor, on Shivalingam, people will be like, hey, this is wrong. Why? Because different deities have different, we can say, customs, traditions that are followed associated with the deities. So when we have different set of customs and traditions pertaining to different deities, it is that guides us to what is right and to what is wrong and to what principles or possibilities ought to be followed. So in this given situation, when we are talking about the component of ethical and unethical, and when we are elaborating upon this segment, we can think of, like, the deity who is there in this Sabrimala temple. So the deity, you will realize that the deity is, we can consider, is associated with a celibate god. So when the god is celibate, in that situation, the god refrains from getting in touch with women who are in menstrual age and visiting the temple. Okay, so in that given possibility, women between, like girls between 10-11 years to 40-45 years are refrained, they are discouraged from visiting that temple, because it can impact their hormones, it can impact their cycle, it can impact their sexual health. And men who are going to visit the temple, even they maintain celibacy a week before visiting the temple. And if they are visiting the trilogy of temples, then they maintain celibacy for almost a month. Anyway, so a week of celibacy, specific chants and like hymns and certain worship that has to be conducted. And after completion of all of it, all those given possibilities, then they are supposed to, like we can say, then they are supposed to follow a specific order, then they are supposed to follow a specific, we can say, ritual. And that is something which you probably can connect with this given dimension, and that's how you can probably reflect upon the possibility of why Sabrimala temple entry is considered unethical by the society, because it is pertaining to the principles or the beliefs related to a specific deity, the nature or the characteristics that you impose on a deity. All right, so I hope that's clear. No, Rajan, it cannot be considered as discrimination against women, because there are a lot of practices which men cannot do and which women can do. One thing. Second thing, religion is associated with beliefs. It is not associated with modernity and logic and rational principles. Either you are not religious at all, and when you are religious, don't try to exercise democracy in it. When you are, like for example, in Shaktism, women have so much of power, and they are far more superior in achieving, we can say, transcendental meditation, and in achieving, we can say, breakthroughs, spiritual breakthroughs, compared to men. because it's the women's body which assists the process of attaining spiritual greatness or breakthroughs compared to a man. A man in Shaktism needs a Bhairavi to perform specific rituals to transcend spiritual growth. So you cannot say, oh my God, man is in an inferior position. Different, we can say, schools of thought pertaining to religion, different belief systems pertaining to religion have different types of rituals and customs. Either you are not a religious person, as simple as that. So you're like, I don't believe in discriminatory rituals and practices. The problem is we try to infuse democracy and modern day laws with respect to traditional religious practices and rituals. No one questions that why Hanuman can be smeared with sindoor but not Shiva. There is a mythology, there is a narrative. You cannot even cross check whether the narrative is correct or not, but you believe it. And as you believe it, you are like smearing like a Shivalingam with milk or with sandalwood paste. You are cooling it off. Whereas when you are talking about the Hanuman statue, you are smearing it with vermilion, right? So, and there are different references to it why those practices are carried forward. So I hope you are understanding this, like when you are raising this given question. So treacherous and long, stranded in the middle of nowhere, medical help, maybe that's why. No, we are not working on maybe, Vaibhav. I can give a detailed explanation to Sabrimala, but the lecture is not focused on Sabrimala. So why to get into it, right? If anyone is interested, there are a lot of online videos pertaining to the logic behind Sabrimala temple entry, why Justice Indu, the same woman who was supporting the section 377 and rights of LGBTQ communities. So she was, I would say, one of the most modern women, one of the most, I would say, rationally exercising the component of law. The same woman, when it came to the Sabrimala issue and when the bench was sitting, she was one of the members in the bench, and she was not in favor of women entering the Sabrimala temple. So what will you say? That the woman is exercising gender inequality? The same woman who was passing in favor of section 377 and LGBTQ relationships? No, she studied the customs and traditions of the local communities, the idea of behind the local deity, the patterns of worship around the local deity. So it's not that women cannot enter. Either you are less than 10 years of age, means before your menstruation starts, or it is after your menstrual cycle is over, menopause is over, then you can go. So it's not that entry is not there, because there is a specific, we can say, there is a specific charm to that place. There is a specific energy to that place. There are specific customs and traditions to the place that ought to be followed. But we will not get into it any further. All right. So who's speaking what and what's what, you can just read it in your own private capacity, because you brought in the debate. So that's why we can just impact this given dimension. All right. So aura in temple gets affected. The temple doesn't get affected. The person entering gets affected. The temple is not a baby. The person entering is an intimidated soul. Please understand that. So that's what. So can we classify prostitution as unethical but legal? Prostitution is still not legal, Sudipto. The Supreme Court said that if two individuals are into a consensual relationship in any hotel or whatsoever, the police is not supposed to conduct raid and catch it. That will be illegal, because two consenting individuals are into a relationship. Later on, if a transaction, a monetary transaction is taking place, that's different. But it is still very clear under the law that if an individual is running a brothel, facilitating prostitution, facilitating any such activity, it is still illegal. So you cannot consider that prostitution is legalized in India. It is consensual relationship taking place in a private place, whether it is a hotel or anything. Police cannot raid it. Police cannot question such a relationship. That is what the court has said. It is not equivalent to making prostitution illegal. Please understand, means making prostitution legal. They are two different things. In law, everything is very fine, and the finer components needs to be understood before arriving at a conclusion. So what we mean by condition under which ethics becomes law? Okay, I get a specific idea, Abhishek. The framing of sentence is improper, but probably I can understand what you are asking. When ethics is containing the component of larger public good, then ethics inspires the law of the day, the creation of law of the day, or it inspires that what kind of laws need to be created or entertained. Got it? So I hope you are understanding. The first Abhishek who asked. So, but ethics is a universal term. Yes, ethics is like having a universal connotation, despite the fact, Ashmi, that you are forgetting. I said that ethics can be associated with three dimensions: ethical nihilism, ethical universalism, and ethical relativism. And in ethical relativism, I also had shared that it can be relative to time, place, and person. And in ethical relativism, I said that though ethics can be relative, but there are some broader universal principles, human rights, which can never be compromised with. And that's why ethics is universal. If you can recall all that. So the haze and confusion is nothing but lack of revision. Okay. So be more thorough with revision. That's what I can say. Something about Khap Panchayat. There's nothing about Khap Panchayat. Khap Panchayat is not a legally elected body. It is based on some caste-based identity or some other identity, but it's not a legally component. Why single mother is unethical? Devansh, because people, what is unethical? When the ethos of the society is not permitting, when people start gossiping, oh my God, this is wrong, this is improper. So a girl without getting married, if she has a child, so people will question the legitimacy of the child, the possibility of, like, the woman, how sexually clear or lewd she is, how open she is. Okay, so that is what makes the possibility unethical. Okay, so how can the same society make contradictory morals, that is laws and ethics, huh? How can you arrive at this given statement, Ravi? I cannot understand that. Society making contradictory morals, that is laws and ethics. Laws are mostly in consonance with ethics only when there is lack of clarity. I said there can be certain conditions when ethics becomes a law and it is not congenial to, like, transformation, when, like, the law is not congenial to transformation, or the ethos of the society is not in like we can say consonance with the transformation. In only such condition, okay, under such a condition, sorry, I missed the word condition. So under such a condition, conflict can arise. So it's not a regular situation. So why are you making a specific condition into a universal phenomena? Is it fair and justified enough to think like that? How could you consider dowry as ethical? When did I say dowry as ethical? Oh, ethical, that ways. Oh, I am not considering it ethical, Kaushik. It is, ask those families, ask those IAS officers who consider it acceptable to receive dowry, and who say that if we are raising our son and we are educating our son, then and the daughter-in-law is going to come in this house and she is going to be a part of this household, her expenses will be taken care of, her necessities will be taken care of. So via dowry, those expenses are covered, those necessities are covered. You have to start a, like, new household, so there are expenses. So they equate it with stridhan, though it is not stridhan. So rather than saying, ma'am, how could you consider dowry as ethical, you can ask the question, ma'am, how the component of dowry is like considered as illegal but ethical. How is dowry ethical? Okay, so it's not that I consider it, it is how society considers it, and that's why it's a popular practice. That's why people who demand for dowry, though they don't feel guilty that what they are asking for is something improper, something illegal, something wrong that they should not do. That is something which is which should never be exercised in any situation under any condition. So that's what. Okay, pressure group is illegal but ethical. Huh? Who said pressure group is illegal? Nutan. From where are you getting, new students getting such strange ideas? If pressure groups were illegal, then why would farmers pressure groups be a part of various committees, like committees meant for farmers? Farmer groups are incorporated. Huh? Pressure groups are part of various committees and commissions when expertise with ground level touch is to be sought after. So Nutan, that's a very faulty proposition that you have. And in fact, pressure groups are a part of civil society, which also facilitates in governance. So either you missed the class of governance also. Now, SME, please support me with miscellaneous questions. I think that I have discussed like quite a sizable amount of component. Now, they are certain other emotions that students want to share. Either approve of it or simple questions, just respond to it. Let's move to the other subsegment, that is, do law play an important role? When we are talking about do laws play an important role, we need to understand that there are so many laws that we have in our society, and with respect to it, when we are speaking of this given dimension, we need to understand that we have so many laws that all laws being followed at all times may not be possible. So, for example, when we are speaking of it, you can think of like a law against corruption. We are aware of law against corruption, but maybe a lot of people are not even following it. So maybe the examiner can ask this question in a different manner. Rather than asking, do laws play any role? The question can be like this: good people do not need laws to tell them to act responsibly, while bad people will find a way around the laws, a way around the laws. Okay, explain. If this kind of question is given, then you have to like discuss about like utility of laws, but at the same time you have to discuss that how the utility of laws is to enforce good behavior in the society. Okay, so discuss this given component, utility of laws is to enforce good behavior in society. Okay, but it is criticized. Okay, but it is a criticism of law as a tool for good behavior. Means, do we really need laws to create good behavior? Or we can consider, if someone is possessing good behavior, the society or the person does not need laws for it. So for exercising good behavior, you don't need laws. If like when we are speaking of this, I can compare it with this given statement which is said that अगर अच्छा आदमी अच्छा काम करेगा तो कानून की क्या जरूरत है, और बुरा आदमी अगर बुरा काम करेगा तो उसको कानून तोड़ने में कितना वक्त है. Means, if a person is good, okay, so the person will be guided by goodness. So why will the person need law? Because guided by goodness, the person will be ethical. And if a person is corruptible, then even if the laws are exist, the person can circumvent, the person can find a loophole, okay, and try to just modify the law in his or her favor, so that the corrupt action can be carried forward. So that's something which all of you can connect with when we are talking about utility of law is to enforce good behavior in society. Okay, so you can connect it with this given possibility, whereby we are like substantiating the subsegments. So utility of law is to enforce good behavior in the society, but good people are guided by goodness, guided by goodness. So law not necessary for them, law not necessary for them. And when we are talking about illegal, people who are bad, so bad people are guided by corrupt intention, guided by corrupt intention, which cannot necessarily be stopped with law. So which can't be necessarily, which can't be necessarily hindered by law, which can't necessarily be hindered by law when we speak of it. Okay, so just by law, which can't necessarily hindered is creating a negative emotion. Wait, whereas it's like the right thing to do. They're following the law. So which can't necessarily be stopped, that it can't necessarily be stopped by law. The person will find a loophole. The person will find a loophole. Yes, restricted can also be used. Okay, so that's there. So here you can think of Dr. Manmohan Singh, like I have discussed Vishweshwaraya, how they were people of high integrity while they were in service. Okay, so you can recall all of them, and then you can recall those people who are proved criminals, proved charges of corruption are there against IS officers. So you can think of them. So just by having law, it's not necessary that we can guide ethical behavior or we can guide the correct kind of behavior. Officers getting caught in drug peddling, officers getting caught in all kinds of crimes, small or big. So you can think of that given dimension. So the question is, are laws helpful? So in that situation, when we are discussing that, are laws really helpful? If someone is asking that in this phase of situation whereby it is ethics or it is conscience which is the true guiding light behind the legal or ethical behavior. So in that situation, you will be talking that laws can, we can say, laws can only enforce minimalist behavior in the long term, in the long run. Okay, so minimalist behavior, comma, in the long run, ethics, in the long run, ethics can prove to be sufficient to guide. Okay, still laws do have utility. So what is the utility of laws when we are discussing about it? So what is the utility of laws? So as I was sharing with you just few minutes back, that they bring clarity in the system, they bring objectivity. Laws are like enforceable because, they are enforceable. They are easy to understand, easy to understand. They also create deterrence. So create deterrence. Also they inform people about right and wrong, what is right and what is wrong, right? You can also consider that they provide ready-made solutions, so ready-made decisions or solutions. So therefore, what do we need to have? We need to have an integrated approach, an integrated, comprehensive approach towards both, right? Comprehensive approach towards both. Then only we will be able to bring in, we can say, an ethical conduct in society guided by the laws. Okay, so that's also something which we can speak of. Now we head to another core component, that is conscience. Conscience as the source of ethical guidance. So when we are talking about conscience, that what is conscience, we all can understand that conscience, as I was talking with all of you, that in situations of dilemma, when what is right, what is wrong, conscience is the guiding light. It is the voice of the conscience which helps us to arrive at what is correct and what is incorrect, what ought to be followed and what ought to be done away with. So conscience is like a special act of what? Act of the mind, that is that has processed the intellect, all the wisdom, all the experiences that we have gained from the past, and the goodness, the idea of goodness and badness, and that is something which has been interpreted by us and that has been passed to us. So when we are talking about conscience from a deontological perspective, then conscience is a judgment. When we speak of it, it is a judgment. It is an act of intellect. Along with that, we can consider that it is an intellectual decision, but somewhere the element of wisdom and emotion is also there. We cannot deny that given process. So conscience, it is different from law. We all understand that. So it is like associated with, we can say, the inner gut feeling. It is something which is creating a possibility of we following a specific act because it is correct. We are focusing on the teleological approach, teleological viewpoint, because we are focusing on the goal. Conscience is focusing on the goal. And what is the goal? To achieve value based action, to like achieve specific social values, not compromise with those social values. Okay, so when a person is, we can consider like guided by conscience, the person is guided by, most of the times guided by the morality of action. Why did I say most of the times? I'll be discussing the crisis of conscience also. So when we are talking about conscience, conscience is on an average giving us the idea about how to enact in a specific situation, which is also guided by morality. So in this given scenario, when we are speaking of it, the conscience can be associated with morality, it can be associated with our individual understanding of right and wrong. Okay, so from deontological approach rather than teleological approach, if I think of deontological approach, means what, how conscience can be a means to achieve the sense of right and wrong while enacting upon a given situation. So we all can see that conscience can be associated with the application of like specific or a particular action. We can see that the teleologists, they believe that law is like giving morality to our action. We are focusing on the end goal, that we have to attain morality, we have to attain a set of values. Whereas when we are going for a deontological approach, in deontological approach, we are trying to use conscience to reach to a legal action. We are using conscience to reach to a legal action. So you can see in deontological approach, we apply conscience. Conscience is used. It is used for what? Yeah, it's written also. It uses conscience to like apply or to reach a particular action. Whereas when we are talking about teleological perspective, in teleological perspective, we are like using conscience to achieve specific value commitments. So we want to achieve a set of value commitments via conscience, via like exercising the path of conscience. So both the schools of thought, deontological path as well as teleological path, both are associated with bringing human reason, moral judgment to our action. Okay, so to our action, it is aspiring to bring human reason or moral judgment to our action. Reason in case of deontology, moral judgments in terms of teleology. This is what both the schools of thought aspire to create. All right, so you have to revise and you'll understand this as I explained. So deontology is associated with the path you follow. So what is the path? Conscience is used as a path to achieve a specific action. So conscience becomes a source. Okay, it becomes a means. And in teleology, what we can understand? So in teleology, we all can see that it is associated with achieving an end, achieving a goal. So via conscience, what is the goal you want to achieve? Value commitments. So from teleological and deontological approaches, we can see it is moral judgments and human reason respectively. All right. So I hope that's clear to all of you. So when we are talking about importance or significance of conscience, so all the keywords, just remember, rather than conscience, the word gut feeling, inner feeling, sixth sense, moral instincts, moral hunch, all these words can be used instead of conscience, and that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly correct. In religious people will call conscience as voice of God. Okay, so it's conscience that is connected to voice of God for them. So there are different names and meanings attached to the term like conscience. So in Latin, it is associated with knowledge, and in Greece, it is associated with moral awareness when we speak of it. So in short, we can consider that what is conscience. So in short, we can say conscience is a result of, we can say, wisdom plus strong emotion, that this is the right thing to do. We should do this given thing, because if you don't follow your voice of conscience, there is cognitive dissonance. There is a sense of a sense of guilt, a deep sense of guilt. So wisdom, strong emotions, we can also connect it with authoritative voice. Conscience has authoritative voice, okay, which motivates us to do the right thing. when we are speaking of it. So wisdom plus strong emotion plus authoritative voice is equals to conscience when we speak of it. Okay. Again, what is the difference between morality and conscience? So you can consider that morality is a part of conscience. Our individual sense of right and wrong is a part of conscience. Conscience is derived from the social standards, the, we can say, ethical standards of the society, which has nurtured us, guided us since our childhood. In the absence of the society, conscience cannot really develop very profoundly, because it's the patterns of socialization, like, the educational institutions, the kind of parents, the kind of teachers, the kind of environment that we are exposed to, that also builds our inner conscience profoundly. Okay, our sense of right and wrong very profoundly. So it is, conscience can be treated as a tool. It is a tool which is like forcing us, it is motivating us to take the right decision. Conscience can also be to a certain extent inherent. I had given you the example of like a girl being molested or being misbehaved with by a man, and the dog chases the man in the movie hall, and you want the dog to take a bite in that man. So like, oh, just run, 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 bite this man, this fellow is like a molester. So you have the sense of supporting, like, the act of the man getting bitten. Whereas when you are watching the movie from the midst, and you're seeing randomly from a scene whereby a dog is chasing a man, you don't want the man to be bitten. So you are just mentally guiding, oh, just board the bus, do something, just run away, just enter into an alley, enter into someone else's house, lock the door. You start thinking like that. So you want the man to be protected, because we have an inherent sense of right and wrong. We have an innate sense of what ought to happen, what ought not to happen. So that gut feeling is also associated with conscience when we speak of it. And morality is a part of our conscience, as I said. So it is inherent in us. It is, we are born with a specific tendency, a certain tendency of right and wrong. So conscience is inherent, is inherent. Okay, it is inherent. It is also a tendency to decide between right and wrong when we speak of it, right? So it is also an ethical intuition, we can say ethical intuition, and that is coming, and this ethical intuition is coming from what? It is coming from our moral awareness. Moral awareness, also it is coming from our moral conduct. Moral conduct, our individual understanding of what is right, what is wrong, that is also guiding our conscience when we speak of it, right? So that's also there. Then further, when we speak of this given dimension, attributes of conscience, attributes of conscience, when we are discussing about it. So what are the attributes of conscience? What are the, we can say, core components of conscience? Okay. So significance or importance can also be associated with attributes, because that's what it is creating, that's what it is contributing. So we can say that conscience, it includes acquired values, acquired values that have been internalized, that have been internalized by an individual. An individual, like for example, if you are born in a Jain family, you will have the value of like vegetarianism, like inculcated deep inside, rights of animals, like inculcated deep inside you. Whereas if you are born in a family where eating non-vegetarian food is normal, which is pertaining to almost 73% of Indian households and across the world also. So in that situation, a person will not be experiencing any ethical dilemma or crisis of conscience while like consuming the meat of an animal. So that's what you can connect with. Again, when we are speaking of it, we can again connect that conscience, it is an inherent, as I had said this sentence few minutes back, that it is an inherent capacity, or we can say an aptitude of human beings to judge between right and wrong. To judge between right and wrong. We can also connect it with it is highly subjective. It is highly subjective because it is connected to a variety of emotions, isn't it? So, highly subjective associated with certain form of emotions, right? Again, we can connect it with, we can say it is vested with the authority to impose duty over us, right? So therefore it is an internal dialogue. It is an internal dialogue that's going on within an individual when we are talking about attributes. Again, when we are speaking of this given dimension, inherent, because over the years, Montu, it becomes your own understanding of right and wrong. Okay, so even though you are like developing conscience in a social context, but it becomes your own inner voice when no one is around, when no one is watching you, and still you are behaving in an ethical manner. It is because of the voice of your conscience. It becomes a part of your insight or thought process. All right. So when we are talking about this importance or significance of conscience, so related to this importance or significance of conscience, we all can connect it with a lot of possibilities. So can you tell me where you have found conscience in the constitution? Where do you find the word conscience in the constitution, people? Yes. Where do you find the concept of constitution in the word conscience in the constitution? Yes, very good, very good. A lot of you are able to recall. So it is associated with article, we can consider article 25. Article 25 is talking about freedom of conscience, right? Okay. Few of you also hinted that DPSP is associated with conscience. So yes, DPSP is considered as the conscience of the constitution. So that any given time period when there is a dilemma, when there is a dialogue, that what ought to be followed, like for example with respect to uniform civil code, when there is a debate going on, you have to understand that it is something which is mentioned in the DPSP, and when it is mentioned in the DPSP, the intention is to bring like generate justice in the society, generate equality for all. Equality does not mean uniformity in terms of commonality, that everything becomes common law. No, it does not mean that. It implies four aspects of human life, that is marriage, that is divorce, that is adoption and inheritance. In all these four aspects, all human beings are treated equally. That's why you see the Hindu Marriage Act was amended. Okay, in 1955 we amended Hindu Marriage Act and we did away with polygamy. Polygamy was culturally practiced amongst Hindus for thousands of years. All the kings, you can see, they have had 2, 3, 4 wives whatsoever, right? You can see King Dashrath, Ram's father, having 3 wives. That was the bone of contention, if you can see. So you can see that the possibility of polygamy, means multiple partner marriage, was something which was a cultural practice amongst like Hindus, and Hindu Marriage Act was amended. Why? Because it brings gender justice. If a woman cannot have multiple husbands, why should a man have, or same vice versa? Okay, so the very possibility of, we can say, marriage was addressed. In present times, when the marriageable age of a girl is increased, and the Hindus or the Muslims, they get triggered and they say, oh, it is an impact on our personal law. No, dude, it's not about your religion. It's more about the health of the girl. If the girl is getting married at a young age, she will become a mother at young age, and that will lead to maternal mortality or child mortality or malnutrition for the mother and child, or both. Okay, so in that situation, for reflecting upon the good health of the mother, we need to increase the marriageable age. Okay, and that intention led to the legal amendment. It's not about Hindu or Muslim, it is about women's rights. Always remember, it's about women's rights. Triple talaq, you will make a religious issue out of it, but it is about women's rights. Inheritance of property, when the, like, it was considered that mitakshara and daya bhaga law is not followed by the, like, the traditional pattern of Hindu law is not followed while, like, deciding the inheritance of property to the girl child, then it was again said the same thing, that a girl owns the property of her father just by birth, and also ancestral property just by birth. So she has access to, she has the right to exercise her ownership over the property. And when we debate over this given issue, that she can exercise her right over ownership of property, and when we debate or discuss about that given possibility, we all can connect it with a lot of subsegments pertaining to what is like being done, because those Hindus who will protest, oh, like, the girl is not getting, like, the girl is not practicing the traditional practice. Well, it's about human rights. So whether Hindu or Muslim, whether it is associated with divorce or marriage, inheritance, anything, okay, it is, in the end of the day, majority of the times it is the girl who is suffering. So to bring in justice, to bring in the component of equality, the DPSP holds the component of Uniform Civil Code. The only thing which we need to refrain from is politicizing the issue. Politicizing by, like, any kind of group, any religious group, thumping its own chest or beating its own back and saying that, oh, see, we did this to X religion or Y religion, we have changed their customs related to this thing, tomorrow we are going to convert them, we are going to challenge the religion per se, we are going to like, disturb their personal laws and ethos. No, that's problematic. That politicization is problematic. UCC is not problematic. The way we play politics around it, that's problematic. If anyone really understands the spirit of UCC, it is guided by justice. It is guided by gender justice primarily. Okay, all right. So with respect to this, when we are reflecting upon this given dimension, so polity may not give you this insight that UCC is associated with gender justice. It will discuss about the possibility of, like, the components of polity, but broadly speaking, it is about, primarily about gender justice. Again, when we further reflect upon this, we can see Gandhiji. So Mahatma Gandhi, so he spoke of 7 deadly sins, and in 7 deadly sins, he speaks of pleasure without conscience. Pleasure without conscience. So we need to exercise conscience in all walks of life as we move. You can think of Rousseau, and Rousseau said that conscience helps us to decide between right and wrong. Vivek must be happy seeing that I'm using the blue color, because he is the child who wants to see different kinds of colors on the board. So Vivek, are you happy seeing different, like, colors being used? Oh yes, I remember he likes green, but there is a different color. So I just thought of him. So just few days back only, he was so, like, attached to the green color, and he kept saying that, ma'am, please, green, green, green. So I'll try to use it. Let's see. When I'm writing big, I'll use different color. Okay. But when I'm writing little small font, then in that situation, I'll choose not to use any different color other than yellow, because I don't want that printout creates a problem. All right. So Lawrence Kohlberg, he considered conscience as the highest stage of moral development. If you can recall Heinz dilemma, right? So conscience as the highest stage of moral development, right? With respect to this, like, even see, when we talk about Satyug, Treta Yug, Dwapar Yug, what is Satyug? Satyug is when people are guided by conscience at all times in all their acts. So that's what. Again, if you remember the 2016 speech given by Pope Francis, especially when the interview was going on, so Pope Francis, he was asked his opinion regarding LGBTQ relationships, abortion, because by that time, it was established that church is highly against LGBTQ relationships and abortion and has spoken vociferously against these practices. So when Pope Francis was interviewed, and when this was asked to him that what is your opinion about LGBTQ relationships or abortion, so he said that these are personal life decisions. And when these are personal life decisions, then they depend on conscience, the conscience of an individual. The church has nothing to do with it. Okay, so it is the conscience which is the decisive authority with respect to an individual, how the individual reacts or how the individual works upon the given situation. All right. What is written before age? Where is age? It is like something whereby I have to now reflect. Age kahan likh diya bhai? So age kahan likha hai? People, they just ask questions randomly. They don't hint which part or where. Stage. Oh, highest stage, Baba, stage. मैं बोली age कहाँ लिख दिया? It is stage. Don't worry, when you take a printout, you'll find it. Okay. My, क्या बोले? Okay, then along with this, you can also think of the presidential election of India. So, presidential elections of 1969. Okay, when Mrs. Gandhi, Indira Gandhi, she gave the urge to listen to vote as per their conscience. Vote as per conscience. This was the urge that she made. So it was N. Sanjeeva Reddy and V.V. Giri. So Neelam Sanjeeva Reddy and V.V. Giri were two candidates. So Neelam Sanjeeva Reddy was the candidate of Congress, supported by old congressmen. Those old congressmen, they treated Indira Gandhi, treating her like a dummy doll. So that was the, we can say, the testing floor of Indira Gandhi's power. So Mrs. Gandhi, what she did was that she got into this specific practice whereby she Mrs. Gandhi, what she did was that she got into this specific dimension, that she got this VV Giri as independent candidate for presidential election. And after that, what she did was that she urged the House that please vote as per your conscience. So the moment she said, please vote as per your conscience, and later on VV Giri won also, that established Indira Gandhi's power, her assertiveness, her rule. So when the victory of VV Giri set a, we can say, a trend, set a trend that every time the presidential election takes place and we can see that the opposition proposes a presidential candidate. So in that situation, the opposition always urges to the parliament, to the House, that please vote as per your conscience. So this idea of voting as per conscience is something which has existed for quite some time. It has existed for long. Okay, so voting as per conscience. So now the question arises in this given situation, before crisis of conscience. Again, I can take this up for all of you. How is conscience helpful for a civil servant, people? Yes. How is, oh, it is too stark. So how is conscience helpful for a civil servant? Yes, people. How is it helpful for a civil servant when we discuss about it? Yes. To take right decisions, to take ethical decisions. Okay, agreed. Something else? So ethical decisions, you are saying, ethical decisions, agreed. You also need to solve ethical dilemmas, conflict of interest, right? So solve ethical dilemmas and conflict of interest, right? That can also be connected with this given subdimension. Something else that you can think of? Yeah, something else that can be connected with this given subsegment? Yeah, can you think of, because examples have to be given, no? So let's say in encounter cases, or any case related to discretion, whenever discretion has to be like exercised. In such situation, you will realize that it is like conscience that is going to help. Okay, conscience shall help. So like let us say you have arrested a like a criminal, a tested criminal who has been a rapist, and you are taking the person to the court. As the person is going to the court, the person tries to run away, and when the person is trying to run away, in the process, like let's say you now have to shoot at the person. Whether you will shoot at the leg, or you have got an opportunity and you'll shoot at the, like let's say the the head, or you'll shoot at the upper part of the body, that is something which is getting determined on the basis of the conscience that you possess. If you respect the rule of law, you will try to hit on the legs. But if you feel that you are unable to like hit the person on the leg, then you are like and you are thinking that yeah, I can shoot at the leg, but this fellow now, after committing so many crimes, god knows when the trial will get completed, let me just shoot. I have a chance also. It is happening in court premises. There is a proof also that this person was trying to fled off. So in that situation, I will be like escorted free. So in that situation, you can see it is associated with conscience. The conscience is guiding your nature of action. Okay, so just like laws are what? External accountability. Conscience is what? It is creating inner accountability. You are aware of the facts of the case. You are guided by your inner morality, and all of it like clubbing together is creating, guiding your conscience. Okay, now you need to understand that not listening to voice of conscience creates crisis of conscience. Crisis of conscience, right? So when we speak of this given subsegment, okay, that not listening to voice of conscience creates crisis of conscience. So with respect to this, when we are reflecting upon crisis of conscience, what is it all about? So with respect to crisis of conscience, you can again enter into another set of insight. Saurav, I need to see your question because I am looking at the screen and writing. So every once in a while, I'm reflecting upon what question is there. Okay, so you'll have to raise the question, keep repeating it on the loop. Then I'll be able to respond to your question, because I just see in a glimpse, whatever I see, I respond. If I feel that SME is responding, I leave it. Okay, so you'll have to just post it. So with respect to this given segment of crisis of conscience, this was also asked in 2019 mains. 2019 mains question. It was related to crisis of conscience. So when we are talking about crisis of conscience, it is associated with when you are not able to decide what is the right thing to do. That is leading to crisis of conscience. And it is a situation when you have done something and you are aware that what you have done, you have a feeling that it is wrong. So with the feeling that it is wrong, it is unethical, and then what should I do? It is then that crisis of conscience emerges. It surfaces up. Okay, there was also a case study related to this few years back, that you are going for your civil services interview, and your relative has met with a fatal accident. The person is like bleeding profusely with that car accident, and if you are not taking the person immediately to the hospital, the person will die. And at the same time, it's your civil services interview. So what are you going to do? Are you going for the civil services interview, or are you going to save the person? So this is a crisis of conscience, because both are important goals for you. But when it comes to saving a life versus appearing for an interview, it should always be prioritized saving a life, because when you save a life cannot be revived. With respect to exams, interview, you can always revisit the situation. Again, possibilities can become favorable for all of you. So thinking of the given possibility, you have to like respond in the given situation. All right. So again, we can understand. So crisis of conscience, when you are talking about it, you can think of two examples associated with it. So Arjuna, he experienced crisis of conscience during the Mahabharata war. Okay, so Arjuna, before the war started, And it is then that he needed that brushing up of his conscience, whereby Krishna guided him to the right path, that what is the correct thing to do. Similarly, you can think of the example of Bharata in Ramayana, when he is asked to rule. Okay, so when he's asked to rule, then he goes to his brother, because he realizes that his brother is sent to exile because his mother wants her son to rule. So in such a situation, Bharat is ridden by guilt. So he goes to his elder brother Ram and he says that, my dear brother, it is you who shall always rule. So give me your footwear. And he placed the footwear near the throne, and he used to sit underneath, not next to the throne. And then he continued with the governance. He said, in the name of your presence, in the name of your we can say footwear, it will be a symbolic rule at all times. Whatever I decide, it will be associated with the possibility of responding. Saurav, I'm waiting for your question. You did not post the question. I just did not see your question. Can you post your question again, Saurav, if you are there? Right. So, but who knows, next time he or she would not reach the interview stage and whole life blaming the person. Anjali, if you become an officer, then in that situation, you means not literally you. If a person like that making such a mistake of leaving the person dying on the road and running for IS interview is the person who will be toxic for society. Toxic because the person cannot prioritize human life over and above personal interest. For that person, personal interest is more important than someone else's life. So the person, after getting into the system, will not shy away from letting a politician coerce a specific rule which is leading to communal riots, leading to caste based conflicts. Such a person will not shy away from going for corrupt acts which can impact the lives of people in multifarious ways. It's just a job. If you are talented, if you have the potential to reach civil services interview, you are not going to be unemployed for your life. You will be doing great in life. But if you are leading, you are encouraging, or you are letting the death of a person unfold before you, that is something which is going to haunt for a lifetime. Okay, so you have to be very clear about such situations. What is more important to be let's say uh, exercised at all times. Okay, so crisis of conscience, what is it? What if the last interview, yes, even if it was your last interview, I mean, just consider, Jay, that suppose your father or your mother was traveling with a relative and they would have met with a fatal accident, and immediately if they are not taken, their life cannot be saved. Okay, and the person has their final attempt of the interview, and your father or mother is just accompanying to give moral courage, to give moral support. And suppose the fatal accident has happened. What will you expect from that relative? That even if it is a pressing situation, it is something which is life testing, but it is the life of the parent that should be saved. So why double standards? When it comes to your own parent, the person should be saved. When it is coming to another relative, let the person die for the sake of a career, for the sake of a job. I mean, is double standards to be practiced when we are talking about human values, when we are talking about ethical standards? And what is the idea of sin? What is the definition of sin? When you let things happen which you won't happen, uh, those things happen unto you. Confucius, if you remember the quotation. So, do unto others what you want others do unto you. So, as simple as that, right? So, with respect to this, um, yes, so can be ma'am, can't be the case that the person be sent by calling ambulance, arranging whatever could do. Yes, that's also there. I mean, you people are getting so senti about it. Ha, okay, it is obvious to be senti, because you people are not only imagining yourself, but you are also behaving that how you would behave in the spur of the moment. If you call the ambulance, okay, let us consider you call the ambulance, but if there is no one to assist the patient, there can be a lot of confusions. Who will pay the bill? Why will the hospital admit the person without any person attending to the, let's say, the victim of the accident? There has to be someone. either police or relatives. You being a relative are running away. Police has yet not arrived. No authority is there to take the person to the hospital. Any like a kind of blood loss can lead to death. So you need to prioritize, no? Think about it. So yes, heights of double standard is that what's we can consider Maya. So with respect to this, whereby you are discussing about the given dimension, you are the one teaching planning. Huh? You are the one teaching planning. What does that mean, Maya? I cannot understand that. You have your answers, your statements are coming in breaks. I'm still getting classes. You have SME, please support Maya. Any kind of support, like, any kind of support she needs. I think she is troubled by some statement because Maya, after every 5 to 10 messages of students, I'm getting random words from you, like really. And then you have, and then I am getting, it's like that. So I'm unable to understand what you aspire to ask. Okay. So can you just like, type the full phrase, full sentence so that SME or I can respond to it. Human beings should learn to be human first. So very true, XY, whoever you are. Okay. Most of the times, in the pursuance of a job, in the pursuance of our fulfillment of our insecurity, we forget the humane touch. That's the sad part. In the end, most priority towards civil services. Yeah, that's what. So now, with respect to this, when we are further moving ahead, SME, please support me with these queries. I'm unable to get a rhyme or reason of few sentences because they are broken sentences. Students are writing as if they are talking to me, whereby grammar is going haywire. So please, like, go ahead with framing proper sentences, few of you, not all. So with respect to this, when we are talking about like this Bharat in Ramayana, he also solved the crisis of conscience, as I shared with all of you. So experiencing crisis of conscience with respect to Rama's exile. Now, so when we are speaking of it, we can connect it with this given segment, that crisis of conscience is a human state. When someone is worrying, when someone is worrying because they think that they have done something unfair or morally wrong. They have done something unfair or morally wrong. It also represents a situation in which it is very difficult, it is very difficult to decide what is the right thing to do. Right thing to do. Now the question is, how we can connect it with, like what kind of solution can we connect it with? So how to resolve? How to resolve? With respect to how to resolve, you come up with like certain specific solutions. Talk about Gandhiji's talisman. Okay, so Gandhi's talisman. Remember Gandhi's talisman? Recall the poorest person you have seen in your life whenever you are experiencing an ethical dilemma or crisis of conscience, and ask yourself that how that act which you are experiencing under crisis of conscience, whether it should be done or not, ask yourself whether that act will help that person directly or indirectly in the long run, or any person as such living in such condition, will it help the person? If it will help, go ahead with it. If it won't help, don't do that. Simple. Again, with respect to it, you can think of utilitarian values. So, utilitarian values or utilitarian ideals. So, when we are speaking of utilitarian ideal, we can connect it with maximum good for maximum people. So, you can also connect it with Ubuntu philosophy. The Ubuntu philosophy is associated with Africa, which means I am because we are. This hyphenates interdependence and respecting diversity in a society. So this is associated with the narrative whereby an anthropologist goes to the we can say the forest region, and not forest region of like one of the tribes in Africa, and the person has a fruit, so offers it to a child. The child runs away and shares it with friends and relatives who are around their place. So the the anthropologist is surprised seeing that sensitivity of the child. So next time gets a basket full of fruits, gives it to the child, and requests the child that do something. You eat it by yourself. You don't need to share it with anyone. So don't be under any pressure. Just enjoy it. Enjoy the fruit. So what happened was that the child, did not listen to that. The child ran away and just called all the friends, all the family members, and started sharing the fruits with them. To which again the anthropologists were surprised and said that when I gave it for you exclusively, why did you share it with others? To which the child said that Ubuntu means I am because we are, means I'm not existing in isolation. Whatever I am and whatever I'm becoming, it is because others are there. Okay, so these principles, these philosophies, when you keep this in mind, it will save you from taking immoral or unethical action. Any action which can break the possibility of we can say rhythmic consonance of life, moral consonance of life, the possibility of living a more balanced existence, a more validated existence. All right. So with respect to this, take care of it is creating crisis of conscience, how to deal. Okay, so with respect to this Maya, when you're writing your, so your is depicting me. So can you just at least work upon your language? Okay, can you just work upon your language? You are like directly saying things to me, the person who is imparting the component of ethics GS paper 4, which is a part of UPSC syllabus. Okay, so just work on the language, right? Because you're writing you all the time. Now you're writing no ma'am, yes ma'am, so I can't get an idea of this. Okay, so okay, all right. So you can work on the language and you can raise the complaint at the right place and position, right? If you want to raise something associated with notes or anything as such, raise it to the management beta. This is not the platform, or this is not the place to raise it. Here, you and I are interacting at a more personal level. This is more of a personal conversation we both are having. The platform is a mere facilitator. So let us enjoy and celebrate the limited number of hours which is associated with building upon our core concepts, core insights. In the end of the day, this is what is going to help in your selection. And all the other issues which are traumatizing you related to maybe the notes or whatsoever, you can just raise it to the management. No one is reading your comments here from the management. It is I, the person reading the comments. So it's not going to make a difference. Write it to the senior management. Okay, if there is anything associated with notes or anything you want to talk about, I am not the authority, and nor this is the right place. So it's better learn things from here, and whatever issues are there, raise it to the senior management. Though I think SME sir is also helping you. Whatever it is, I have no clue whatever you are saying, because I'm telling your message is coming in fragments. SME, please support Okay, please support Maya in whatever way she can be, because there are in between hundreds of messages which are coming in between, and I need to like respond to the core messages as well. Now, as like Anjali, you are talking about this given the possibility associated with what you are experiencing, the crisis of conscience. It's like the timetable management versus how to manage the relationship, what you are undergoing with respect to the problem which I can sense. So in that situation, the crisis of conscience is whether should I, like I should serve the family, or I should like stand for my preparation. So you can always prioritize things, design things, and you can always have an effective conversation. Crisis of conscience occurs when you feel you are doing something wrong. If you're confident that you pursuing your education is the right thing to do, then don't have any guilt about it. Okay, you can always sit and you can counsel. Always remember this thing, that people might be senior to us in different walks of life, but it's not necessary that they always have the right kind of ethos, values, or possibilities. Otherwise, why would the senior generation endorse child marriage? Why would the senior generation practice sati in the past? Why would the senior generation practice a lot of like we can say customs and traditions which may encourage communal emotions, communal sentiments? A child doesn't become communal from birth. The practices pertaining to communalism, it unfolds before all of us in a situation whereby we all can see that the the practices associated with communalism is something which is unfolding before all of us as seniors. The senior citizens or the seniors of the society are guiding us into that emotion. Just day before yesterday only, I was watching that Veer Das's stand up, which was posted on YouTube. So this fellow, his latest stand up, he was a very profound statement that he made in his stand up, that the senior leaders are hungry for power, and for that sake they are exploiting the minds of the younger ones who are getting angered. So anger is roused in the younger one for the sake of hunger for power for the senior one, and the younger one is getting angered, and with the anger is trying to snatch or grab the same power which the senior one is having. Okay, so there is a tussle for power which is going on, and that is something which is leading to all the misguiding. So you need to understand that with due respect to seniors, all seniors, you need to also have a clarity that everything which is coming from the level of seniority may not always be ethically correct, and you can always choose your path which is leading to larger goals, larger values, with respect to, we can consider the possibility of what we are experiencing. All right, so that's what we can consider. Okay, now, so with respect to this given dimension, when we are further substantiating the components pertaining to crisis of conscience, we can also associate it with Angulimal and Buddha's incident, right? Why? Because let us consider, if I'm asking this given question, like let's say, let me check if it is there. No. So, like, let's say if I'm asking this given question, that do psychopaths have crisis of conscience? People, do psychopaths have crisis of conscience? Okay. All right. All right. Now, I alter my question. Think about it. You can pause. You can pause. Think about another question. Do psychopaths have voice of conscience? Do psychopaths have voice of conscience? Psychopath, well, Anjali, they are those people who are into massive crimes, like, serial killers, serial abusers. So that's what. So do like psychopaths have voice of conscience? Okay, very good, Ashmi. And those students who are able to respond to it. Okay, so when we are speaking of psychopaths, you need to understand that psychopaths, they do have a voice of conscience, but they suppress it when we speak of it. There is nothing like we can consider a person not having voice of conscience. Every person has voice of conscience. Okay, yeah. And because everyone is guided by conscience, like as I like always say that this given thing which I used to hear my grandpa saying, that आत्मा की आवाज मरती नहीं सो जाती है. That is, the voice of conscience does not die. It just gets suppressed. It just goes in a neutral mode. It just goes in a dormant mode. Okay, and that is why when for the first time someone is committing a crime, for the first time when someone is, like, let us say, stealing, or for the first time someone is committing any crime, the person will have palpitation, or like very like we can say heartbeat will go up. There will be problems associated with challenges associated with sweaty palms. There will be challenges associated with how the person is, like, let's say, responding in a specific situation. So the person may palpitate, may shiver, may falter. There will be a possibility that the person may have like a shaky voice. So there will be physiological reactions to how the person is thinking, behaving, or responding. Okay, so when we are talking about the possibility of like voice of conscience, when you commit crime for the first time, there is a very like high voice of conscience. But when you keep committing crime by and by and by, okay, associated with any given issue, you need to understand that with multiple times the crime being committed, what really happens is that the voice of conscience, it starts getting suppressed. So first time a person is killing, the hand is shaking, the person is feeling sweaty, getting like like nightmares at night after the kill. But after like committing the crime, if the person is on a rampage day after day, the person is constantly shooting different people, so over the time period the person will not have any form of guilt. And it means the suppressed voice of conscience will not lead to any form of immediate guilt, which is leading to shaking hands and sweaty palms or sweaty forehead, or any kind of we can say nightmarish existence. That won't happen. So when we are speaking of this given dimension, one needs to be very like much aware that this voice of conscience is always present in all human beings. It is more associated with, we can consider, the issue is more associated with what kind of interventions can be further carried forward. All right, so you can be like associated with this given dimension. No, not enjoy per se, but we can consider the idea of guilt starts getting suppressed. Okay, that idea of guilt can get suppressed. All right, that's what you can consider. So again, we can also ask that is like conscience, it means here conscience. So is conscience a reliable source of ethical decision making? Yeah. Is it a reliable source of ethical decision making? Yes, yes, incidentally. Okay. So now your question was visible Basaiya. Just keep posting the question. I think someone, either the SME or I, would just respond, because when I'm asking short questions, there is an array of answers coming up Basaiya. Hence the question gets suppressed. So keep posting it somewhere. I'll just catch it. So can we say that slowly the voice of conscience gets dormant? Yes. When we are dishonoring it multiple times, it gets like in a dormant mode. Okay, so is it a reliable source in ethical decision making? So you can say mostly yes. Mostly yes. But at the same time, it depends. Okay, it depends on the wisdom that you possess. It depends on the wisdom you possess. Okay, if a person is knowledgeable, if a person is knowledgeable or informed, then the person can be guided to the right direction, right? And the person can be guided to the right direction. But okay, but if the person is not well informed, but if there is lack of information, in that situation, what will happen? Misguided communication or misguided conscience, misguided conscience. So that is something which you can connect with, we can consider like Arjuna before the war, as I was sharing with all of you. So before war, and Krishna guided him. Similarly, you can think of Nehru. when he trusted Chinese wholeheartedly. Okay, so he was himself a positive person. He was himself like having an optimistic outlook. So with a positive person with optimistic outlook, he could not smell the cheating of the Chinese premier. Okay, so that's how we can see that that led to the cheating, and which led to we can say the Chinese aggression. So when you are always guided by good faith and not the facts of the case, and someone else manipulates the facts of the case in his or her favor, in that situation, the country has to pay the cost. So that's what you can consider. Yes, Bose trusted Japanese forces. You can connect with that as well. This is what Socrates quoted. What Socrates quoted? Okay, so maybe Anjan, you have shared something that just moved ahead. So when we are in the conflict between the heart and the brain, follow your heart. Yes, yes, Devansh, that's there. Again, we are when we are talking about it, we can also, I can give you an example of Discovery Channel. Like with respect to this Discovery Channel, we all can see that, like let us consider a tiger is catching a deer. Now, different individuals can respond differently. Suppose the deer is a mother and the child, like she just pushes her child to run away. As the child starts running away, the mother stops. Let the tiger hunt her. And with like stone cold eyes, she is like looking at her child with firm eyes, not stone cold, I should say, with firm eyes. She is looking at her child like fleeing off. At the same time, she is just letting the like tiger devour. So a lot of people will be like saddened by seeing that. They're like, oh my god, this is so disturbing. Suppose a buffalo, a male buffalo comes and starts hitting the tiger, and the deer is able to escape, elope. Everyone will be like clapping hands. Wow, very good, this is what should have happened. Now the thing is, we do not understand that our conscience is not something which is like guarding the nature or something which is guiding the nature. Nature has its own law. The herbivorous will be consumed by the carnivorous, and the carnivorous, if they do not consume the herbivorous, they cannot survive. Herbivorous also needs to be consumed by the carnivorous so that the green patch is maintained, greenery is left. Otherwise, massive deforestation can happen and siltation of rivers can happen, which can lead to inundation and floods. So there has to be a balance which nature is maintaining. Neither the running of the deer is wrong, nor the running of the tiger is wrong. Both are running for their lives. The tiger is running behind the deer to survive, or for its own survival, and the deer is also running for its own survival. Attaching emotions or values to that specific natural act, okay, is unnecessary. So when we are talking about conscience, you can connect conscience with, so like let's say if you are talking about conscience, you can connect it with rationalism, like reason, as I said. So reason, that is rationalism. You can connect it with, so conscience is a balance of reason, evidence. Evidence, in other words, can be connected with empiricism, and we can also connect it with sentimentalism, like emotions. So we can connect it with emotions, that is sentimentalism. So sentimentalism, rationalism, and empiricism, all the three clubbed together leads to conscience. So conscience is something which is generating or it is creating balance. Okay, so with respect to that, that's what we can consider. So SME, thank you for all the support that you are extending. It means a lot. Please keep supporting me with respect to these segments. Now, so ma'am, what is national conscience? When you are associated with the idea of nation state, can subjectivity in conscience cause problems? Yes, I was discussing that just few minutes back, Ashmi. Read the slide. There are so many traitors during freedom movement. What about their conscience? Their conscience was guided by the politics of the day rather than the ideals of the future. Okay, so case of women entering Haji Ali Dargah falls under which category? Well, I mean, under which category? What category? It's just that they just enter the Haji Ali Dargah, and what's the harm in going to Haji Ali's place? So and people have been visiting the dargah for years together. I remember way back 2008 or so, when I went to Mumbai, even I have visited the dargah. So what's the harm in that? So there were so many traitors during our freedom movement. Ye to ho gaya. And now I'm not able to see enough questions. Okay. Is conscience and consciousness relatable? Consciousness is awareness. Conscience is the guiding principles which are inert in nature, which are based on strong emotions, our sense of right and wrong, and which guides us with what is right, what is wrong. Okay. So that's what. So what is the spelling after evidence? Empiricism. Okay. Empiricism. Fine. All right then. So let us take a break and let us be back. So got to switch on the mic. My bad. I'm really sorry. Okay. So I said that in types of conscience, this is something which is like to be read by you, like as homework. So this is something which will guide you with respect to how you can witness about conscience from various perspectives that's unfolding before all of us. So with respect to the dimension of types of conscience, when we are talking about it, we can connect with respect to it, in the dimension of true conscience. True conscience is based on evidence, it is based on judgment and logic, it is associated with accurate application of law in action. When we are speaking of it, if there is erroneous judgment, then that is not true conscience. So conscience can also be associated with probability. When it is based on probability, then there will be a possibility of error, or there will be a possibility of, like, miscarriage of judgment. So if there is lack of prudence, lack of rationality, lack of logic, that is something which can impact the possibility of how we are arriving at a conscience. So we can see that conscience can be both doubtful and it can be erroneous, and that is something which will create a crisis of conscience. Crisis of conscience emerges out of it. So if, like, it is doubtful because you have been socialized into a specific way, whereby one generation is believing in another set of values and ideals, another generation is with another set of ideals, like pertaining to religion, pertaining to intercaste marriage, anything of that sort, or role of women in the family, working women, any such possibility can be connected with it. Okay. So please, SME, help me with the question of Anjali, because it will create a distraction from the topic. She is just bringing in chapters of the past, and that will just break the rhythm. So just help me with that. Again, with respect to this, okay, I'm really happy to know that, Labdhi, that you are reading the notes, and notes is actually helping you. This is an earnest request. Please go through the material. When we are talking about ethical concerns in public administration and probity in governance, details of all this information that I'm sharing, which you were struggling with, Subbarao, you will find it in a simplistic manner over there. So please go through the material with folded hands. I'm just requesting all of you, read it. You will gain greater clarity on a lot of topics which is being taught, okay, with multiple dimensions which needs to be brought up in context when you are elaborating upon the topics. So just do that. All right. So and when you are going through the various segments, that is something which will going to nourish you at multiple levels. Now, does too much of emotion is not dangerous if person new and emotional? Wait, too much of emotion, Prithvi Raj, means it is constantly pressing upon you that you do not deviate from enacting upon conscience. Okay. So too much of emotion or strong emotion is related to guiding you to enact upon it. Too much of emotion does not mean here obsessing over emotion like anger or love or hurt, something like that. It's not obsessing over emotion. Here, when we use the word strong emotion, because I did not use the word too much emotion, I use the word strong emotion. So strong emotion is something which is guiding you to enact in line with the conscience, not like defy the conscience. Okay. So I've given you some extra material to reflect upon the component of conscience. It is expected that go through it, like ethical principles that are governing conscience, or After ethical principles governing conscience, like which you can see it is divided into various subparts, the reflection of how conscience needs to be practiced in day-to-day life, like in all we can say sectors, and how our levels of social background, like our class, our level of education, our level of exposure also guides conscience. All those segments are given over here, which is giving us a sense of right and wrong. So it is requested, please run through it, please read it. Okay, it's just 3-4 slides. You will develop a profound understanding pertaining to conscience further. Okay, so with respect to this, you can just reflect upon this. The rules and regulations provided to all the civil servants are same, yet there is difference in performance. Why is there difference in performance? It is because of what? It is because of, we all can see, this is associated with which given component. So rules and regulations with respect to all civil servants, whereby it is saying difference in performance, it is associated with the conscience, component of conscience. An officer having high level of conscience will be a positive minded officer, will be following rules, regulations, and will be working in favor of the case to achieve success. Whereas a person having suppressed conscience, or like the officers who are into corrupt activities, so they are negative minded officers. When conscience is suppressed, then interpretation can go wrong, and in that case people can suffer, the common demos can suffer, the office can suffer with rights wrong set of work ethos, work culture, when the person is not truly motivated. So you have to discuss it with illustrations. The prime question is discuss. Okay, so bring in conscience over here and then discuss. Just previous slides I have discussed with respect to private sector, like you can see public managers and all that, so how they are supposed to discuss. In general also I have discussed this issue with respect to managers. So you can bring in the insights from what is given over here and what is discussed before the break, and then you can try to respond to this given statement. So how conscience, when it is abided by, it creates clarity in action, it brings in integrity in action. When conscience is missing, then how it creates greater challenge or problem, right? So bring all of it in, and that's how you can create I would say better sense of understanding. So that's what. Further, with respect to this given segment, yes, I'm glad to know, Labdhi, that you are understanding the questions now. And when you start understanding the questions, your capability to respond will become sharp. Now, with respect to accountability, when we are talking about it, you can follow this diagram. So accountability, then we can write down ethical governance, then we can think of good governance, and then we can think of governance. So accountability is at the core of governance. Whenever we are speaking of governance, good governance, ethical governance, accountability is at the core. Okay, so when we are talking about first and foremost governance, what is governance? It is the manner in which power is exercised. Manner in which power is exercised. And power is exercised for what purpose? So we all can see that power is exercised for, like we can say, utilization of a country's resources, for utilization of a country's resources. Okay, a country's resources for we can consider its maintenance and development functions, maintenance and development functions, right? So when we are discussing about like this given subsegment, what is governance, that's how you can understand it. Then comes what is good governance. Now there is, we can see this prefix called good over here. Okay, so what do we imply when we are speaking of good governance? Okay, so when good gets added, We can connect it with like a value based dimension. So good is a value based dimension, and with the value based dimension we can consider that it incorporates both, it includes both, it includes both, includes both what means as well as ends. So when we say goods, like good governance, you are taking care of the means as well as the ends, right? So your means oriented value and ends oriented value, both are taken care of. That means you are taking care of, we can consider like whatever you are doing, you are taking care of democracy, you are taking care of professional ethics, you are taking care of what ought to be like adhered to as a citizen. You are also like depending or reflecting upon the ethics and morality of ethics and morality in a given social context when we are speaking of good governance per se. Yes, deontology and teleology is incorporated in good governance. And here you can see, like for example, Kautilya, he said that in the happiness of subjects lies the happiness of the king. So that was the idea of good governance according to him. Or for that matter, when we are talking about Gandhiji, so when Gandhiji is speaking of, like let's say, the term Suraj, okay, so Suraj, what is Su? Su is good, so Suraj. Or like if I said Kautilya, maybe I should just quote. So Kautilya is saying that in the happiness of the subjects, so in the happiness of subjects, in the happiness of the subjects lies the happiness of the king, lies the happiness of the king. And that is how you are able to understand. Okay. Further, when we are speaking of it, you can also connect with good governance with respect to 8 pillars of good governance. 8 pillars of good governance. Quote this in the answer. Connect it with United Nations, as it was initially given in by United Nations, later endorsed by second ARC. So in second ARC also it is incorporated. So what are the 8 pillars of good governance? Or suppose it is written, what are the qualities of good governance? What is the aptitude related to good governance? So bring in these words, bring in the words like transparency, bring in the words like accountability. Okay, so accountability, consensus, okay, consensus oriented. You can connect it with participatory, participatory. You can think of it with respect to rule of law. Then efficient and effective government. So effective and efficient. Please connect it also with responsible government. So responsible. Then equitable. And last but not the least, so equitable and inclusive. All right. Because when you are equitable, you are exercising inclusivity. Both are one and the same. So this is something which you are supposed to connect with. Also connected with the chapter of probity in governance. This is something which you should also connect it with probity when that will be discussed. So probity in governance. All right. So yes, connected with Nolan principles, Ram Rajya, very good, very good. I appreciate all of you are able to connect. Utilitarian Vivek, it means utilitarianism means when in the like a maximum good for the maximum people, when you are believing in this principle, that is the principle of utilitarianism. Okay. Now, when you are understanding this, then you can reflect upon what is ethical governance. Okay. So after understanding good governance, right, inclusive growth, these terms, right? When you are talking about rehabilitation of the poor, so rehabilitation drives, rehabilitation of the poor. You can connect all of it with respect to ethical governance when we are discussing about the same, right? So with respect to this, when we like reflect and when we are substantiating the components of ethical governance, so ethical governance will be related to what? So ethical governance will be related to prohibition of all forms of favoritism, corruption. Okay, so prohibition of all forms of corruption and favoritism. So connect it with the chapter of probity in governance, as I shared few minutes back again. So favoritism. Okay, connect it with probity, connect it with justice, connect it with equality, probity, justice and equality. When all these values are taken care of, then ethical governance is put to action. Then ethical governance is exercised. You can also connect it with accountability and responsibility. So accountability and responsibility. Then you are behaving with ethical components in governance. So ethical governance is this when we are discussing about it. So further, when we are discussing about it, what is accountability? Because see, here we are reflecting upon accountability and ethical governance. So we reflected upon what is governance. Then we reflected upon what is good governance. Then we discussed about what is ethical governance. And after this, we can reflect upon what is accountability. So accountability is what? So it is associated with the possibility of you are ensuring that the actions and decisions taken by a civil servant, it is always put under oversight. You are observing it, you can cross check it, you are able to guarantee it. Why are you overseeing it? Because you can guarantee that you have followed the action, you have fulfilled the basic prerequisite. Okay, the governmental initiatives and objectives have been fulfilled, okay, which were supposed to be taken up. So the concept of accountability, it is associated with answerability and enforceability. What is answerable? When you are like, let's say, obligation of the government is there, whereby it is informing the people, okay, it is making the people aware of all the information. So obligation to provide information, and along with obligation to provide information, you also have to justify why you enacted upon a situation in a specific manner. So to provide information along with justification is associated with answerability. Okay, further we can see enforcement, we are when we are discussing about it. So enforcement is associated with public or institution is responsible, it is accountable, and it is like sanctioning a specific behavior. It is when we say enforce law, so while enforcing law, what do we imply to say? So it is associated with making the body responsible to execute upon the law. That's what it means. So enforcement is also there in accountability, where you can sanction, or you can also like sanction to the offending party, or you can also provide remedy to the contravening party. So enforcement of law can be associated with both sanctions as well as remedies, whereby you are executing the law, you are putting the law in action. Yes, imparting the law for the citizens, right? Again, with respect to this, there is yet another question that can be raised. Why is it important to guard the guardians? Now, this is a very interesting language you must be feeling. Guard means put an eye, put a check, put a check, keep a close eye, keep a watchful eye. Here, this is what I imply. So, keep a watchful eye. This is what I imply. Guard means also protect. Here, I do not imply the word protect. Guard the guardians. Whose guardians? The civil servant. Okay. So, why is it important to keep an eye on the civil servants? Okay. In other words, like, because UPSC is not going to ask why is it important to make the civil servants accountable. Okay. So, why to make civil servants accountable? I'm writing this so that later, if someone is forgetting the meaning of the question, the person is able to connect with this. Okay. और भी लिख दिया. Okay. So this is how you are supposed to understand why is it important to guard the guardians. What is the reason? So there are various reasons when we speak of it. If I quote Woodrow Wilson, he had spoken this statement that a man steals when there is a lot of money and there is no one to watch. So in this given situation, a civil servant is handling pools of money, multiple crores of money for various developmental projects. In such a situation, again, that quotation which I had given you, that when a fish is swimming in the water, you cannot decide when the fish drank the water, right? So in the similar manner, when you are with, like, you are in the pool of information, pool of money, pool of resources, in that situation, siphoning funds, going corrupt, it is very easy. Okay, so it is very important to guard the guardians, to keep them accountable. Okay, to keep them accountable. We can also quote over here Kautilya, right? You can think of Kautilya when he says that human nature is to get corrupted. Thus, deterrence should always be created. And his methods of deterrence were so severe. If you read the types of punishment which Kautilya speaks of in the face of corruption, in the face of theft, in the face of any kind of unethical behavior, like very, I would say, coercive laws, and we can say um, laws which are like very much causing a lot of strain and restraint on the society, and which have been associated with harsh punishments. Probably yesterday only I was sharing it with you that one of the punishments which is written in Arthashastra is associated with frying the live human being. I mean, whether it was exercised in reality or not, we don't know. But the idea, the very thought of frying a live human being, I mean, that's so tremendous, that's so severe. Think about it. I mean, it's like literally creating hell on earth. Anyway, so Lord Acton, he had also said that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So we have to keep a check, so that with absolute power, a civil servant is not going corruptible, right? So you can think of all that. Again, with great power comes great responsibility. Recall all those quotations, put it like over here when we are discussing about this. Okay, so it is very natural for a civil servant to get motivated to take bribe. Think about all those situations. Hence, it is very important to make the civil servants hold accountable for all the resources that they are managing, all the resources that they are surrounded by. Because we need to understand that without accountability, the bureaucracy will become like a Frankenstein's monster. Okay, bureaucracy will become like Frankenstein's monster. You know what happened with respect to Frankenstein? Because many of you may not have read this piece of literature. So this monster, like, actually the experiment was carried forward by a biologist. So the biologist was uniting parts of different human beings, someone's heart, someone's eyes, the best of the organs, and uniting it all, and a huge monster like creature got created after stitching it. And with certain experiments in the story, what happens, the monster comes alive, and the first person that the monster kills is the creator. And why? Because definitely the creator has created, so the creator can put an end. So that's what is associated with it. So bureaucracy, if there is no accountability, it will become Frankenstein's monster. Means rather than serving the people for whom bureaucracy is created, it will start like dishonoring the people, it will start troubling the people, it will start negatively impacting the people. All right. Yes, it was by Mary Shelley. I'm glad to know that, Pragya, that you have read. Great. Okay, it's like a robot movie. No idea, bhai. In robot movie, I've not seen it, but must be something similar. Okay, so I hope you all can understand. The bureaucracy is supposed to serve people, and rather than serving people, it can backfire. Backfire in the absence of backfire in the absence of accountability. Okay, that's why accountability is needed. And it is very natural for a bureaucrat to go corrupt for the simple reason, we can say, Kautilya had said that human beings have a natural tendency to get corrupted. So there has to be certain deterrence to keep a check on them, right? So with huge discretion comes huge accountability. There is huge discretion. Okay, so there has to be like high level of accountability. With great power comes great responsibility. Not just great responsibility, but also accountability. Why there is huge discretion in the job? Because if a bureaucrat wants, the bureaucrat can also fell the house of a person, can just, like, bulldoze someone's house. But on what basis and under what law the person had the authority to do so. That has to be explained by the bureaucrat. Okay, so if that given possibility, if there is autonomy but there is no, we can say, accountability, it will lead to dictatorial possibilities, right? So you can say accountability is inversely proportional, inversely proportional inversely proportional to, we can consider, um, autonomy. Okay, so if there is discretion, if there is autonomy, then in this given situation, misuse and abuse of power can happen. That's why we can see that post LPG, liberalization, privatization, globalization, we can see decentralization of power is occurring. In the process of decentralization of power, we can see that there is increased role of public private partnership. We can see there is increased role of people. So there is people's empowerment, we can see that happening, people's empowerment. We can also see like participation of people as not beneficiaries but as stakeholders. Okay, so like not beneficiaries, people are not to be treated as beneficiaries, this awareness is coming, they have to be treated as stakeholders. We can also see that the component of, like, we can say the civil society, the role of NGOs, pressure groups, right, civil society, all that is constantly increasing to bring in greater transparency, to bring in greater, like we can say, possibility of keeping a check over the power of the bureaucrat. Yes, end of license Raj. Monopoly plus discretion minus accountability is corruption, the formula that I always share with all of you. So yes, you can use it in paper too, you can use it in the last chapter, probity in governance, there also. If not keep in check, the power will ask people to serve them instead of serving them. Yes, so very true. That's what beneficiary to stakeholder mentality is, what is necessary. So for example, during the times of Diwali, the police officers asking small roadside vendors to give them stuff for free. Yeah, that's also there, that's also there. So all those possibilities need to be kept under check. Definitely we can talk about this given possibility. So decentralization is something which is going to bring about a change. So you can also talk about the possibility of the system needs to be activated. The second ARC is talking about the principle of subsidiary. Okay, so second ARC and talk about principle of subsidiary, principle of subsidiary. एक मिनट, बाद में सब बोलेंगे, समझ में नहीं आ रहा है. Subsidiary. What is this principle of subsidiary? Okay, so this principle of subsidiary is, it holds that the central or any central, so a central authority should have a subsidiary. Means everything should not be performed by the central authority, it should be outsourced. Okay, so should have a subsidiary, that is performing only those tasks which cannot be performed effectively at local level. Right, so that is something which you need to connect with. So hence there has to be a balance between, we can consider, accountability with autonomy. That's how you are supposed to consider. So why do we need to guard the guardians? What is the purpose? So the purpose of guarding the guardians is to ensure that abuse of power does not occur. Therefore we need to stop abuse of power, prevent abuse of power, right? and all the goals enshrined in the constitution. We can connect it with the second ARC, the transparency, accountability. Okay, all that is a pre-requirement for having a community oriented approach towards development, a citizen centric approach towards delivery of public services. Okay, so we need to constantly follow we can say ethical behavior at covert level as well as inert level. From inside also ethical behavior should be guiding, outside also ethical behavior ought to be exercised, and that is how we will be able to balance autonomy with accountability. Okay, and that is the greatest dilemmas of popular government. So that is how you can like balance accountability with autonomy. Again, when you further discuss about types of accountability or types of obligations or types of responsibilities, okay, this is something which I believe all of you can connect with. What is the word after performing only those? Performing only those. Okay, performing only those के बाद यहाँ tasks, tasks, TASKS. All right, tasks which can't be performed effectively at local level. Fine. Now, with respect to types, so ma'am, till we don't have internal ethics, it can't be expressed externally. So very true. So very true. What is the word after ye to ho gaya? Stakeholders are people. Yeah, yeah. Stakeholders are people who are aware of their rights. Beneficiaries are like receivers. My baap de do. Please give me. So beneficiaries are more like at receiving end. Stakeholders are the ones who are demanding their rights, who are aware of their rights, who are ensuring that there is transparency and accountability in the system. So stakeholder is the empowered citizen. Beneficiary is the citizen who's at the receiver's end, who's not so empowered. Okay. So I hope you can connect and differentiate between the two. Post independence, like, we developed we have lived mostly the possibility of beneficiary. The people, the citizen centric approach have been more like beneficiary approach. Now we need to move from beneficiary approach to, we can say, the approach associated with stakeholder mentality. Okay, so stakeholders can be anyone. Stakeholder is the larger society which is holding the, we can say, MLA accountable, the MP accountable, asking them that what are you doing, what ought to be done. So that's what. Okay, can minimum state interference reduce corruption? Yes, yes, yes. We can consider that with minimum state interference, only state interference in crucial things like defense, like education, like healthcare. But for other areas, when you go for privatization, you can regulate to whom to give the tender, what is the nature of services that are provided. You don't know what was the nature of internet in 2008 and 9. We are the victims of that generation, because in those times there used to be this MTNL in Delhi, and MTNL Garuda. And I still remember there used to be like in Mukherjee Nagar area where I briefly stayed. So I used to call up the guy whenever there was a snap in the internet. I used to call up, hello, there is no internet. And I used to, in those times also, we used to pay a heavy amount. Like me and my friend, we were paying 650 rupees. So we used to call up that, hello, internet is not coming. There is a problem in the link. That fellow is like, oh, there must be some dust on the wire. I'll come and I'll clean it. I was like, when? Oh, I have a lot of work. I'll come within a day or two. After 2 3 days also the fellow is not there. Again you are calling up, you are going to the office, then you are like requesting. Then the guy is coming very in a relaxed pace. A day or two later is like, oh, I mean, like, I was so worked up, no problem, having tea also, like, just dusting off the, we can say, carbon on the wire, and everything is smooth, everything starts working again. And you are like, okay, finally things are happening. And like, it was too arbitrary. So I used to get very irritated that when I'm paying for 30 days, why am I getting services for 26 days or 27 days? Nowadays, if there is a break in the link, you can always raise a complaint, you can always change the services. That's what privatization does. It brings in competency, it brings in, we can say, quality, it brings in alternative choices. Okay, so that's what we can connect with. Fine, ma'am, it used to take 2 days to open Facebook. Okay, all right. So earlier I thought that ethics would have, now it looks interesting. Okay, I'm glad to know that, Anuishka. but that would lead to evils of capitalism. Yes, and capitalism is kept under check by not letting everything get privatized. There is a PPP model possibility also, Anurag, right? So can we also include CVC and reforms? Yes, you can include CVC and all the reforms. Okay, but it also got costlier. Yes, it got costlier, but everything is hit by inflation. Vanshika, today I pay 850 for the internet, the like we can say the internet connectivity which I get at home, but it is seamless. I can take sessions, I can perform a lot of work, I can download videos within a minute, and I can upload them like within again a few minutes. So all those possibilities are there. So yes, mixed economy is something which is creating the possibility of balance. So when we are talking about types of accountability, we can discuss it from various perspectives. So like you can start it with constitutional obligation or responsibility. So when we are talking about constitutional obligation or responsibility, you can think of Article 310. In Article 310, there is doctrine of pleasure of the president. You can think of that. You can think of Article 312 also. You can think of Article 309 as well. 309 is like the power of the parliament to provide services, specific services or service conditions for the civil servants. Okay. Simultaneously, with respect to the constitutional obligations or the constitutional, we can say, accountability of what the civil servants are getting in terms of the power, in terms of the we can say power or intervention that they can create. Along with that, we can also see that there is Article 37. So Article 37, which says that a civil servant should always work in line with DPSP, always work in line with the DPSPs. So, you can think of that. Again, you can think of political obligations. Political obligations. Now, with respect to political obligations, the question arises, okay, with respect to doctrine of ministerial responsibility. Who is finally responsible if things go wrong? Okay, who is finally responsible with respect to civil servants? So I was discussing about, remember, the principle of anonymity. In the principle of anonymity, I had shared this with all of you, that a civil servant is supposed to remain anonymous, not glorify the possibility of I did this, I did that, because a civil servant is a part of the system who has conducted the work. It is the minister, or it is, we can say, the political leader who is supposed to lead the entire pack, lead the entire game. So if things go wrong, it is the politician who is supposed to be blamed. Like for example, when the railway accidents had happened during Lal Bahadur Shastri's time, he took the responsibility, the moral responsibility of it, and he submitted his resignation for the same. If we speak of this political obligation, I can again quote Chagla Commission's report. What happened was that there was this Mundra scam in 1957, and the Mundra scam was quite sensational because the money of LIC was used to purchase the shares of Mundra, because of which the shares of Mundra shot up. So this entire situation, this this entire issue went under the scanner, and when the scam was unfolded, and when the details were read, then the then finance minister was, means at that time period, the finance minister's name was VV Krishnamachari. So Krishnamachari, he said that I am not held to be responsible. I did not even know what my personal secretary did. So rather, sorry, personal secretary, I'm saying finance secretary did. And at that time, finance secretary was Mr. Patel. So Mr. Patel, a Gujarati, supporting another Gujarati, Mundra, to help, the share prices shoot up. When Mr. Patel was inquired, he said that it's not that VV Krishnamachari was not posted about it. Now, it is not the times of technology that you can prove that whether he was aware or not. So when the commission got into inquiring whether to hold Krishnamachari responsible or not, the commission reflected that the final onus of responsibility lies upon the minister. So if there is anything going wrong, okay, at ministerial level, at departmental level, at the level of decision making, the final onus of responsibility falls on the minister. So the minister cannot shy away by saying that, oh, I am not to be held responsible because I am not responsible for committing this crime because I was not even posted. It is my personal secretary who has committed this crime. No, this is not the excuse. This is not the excuse that ought to be entertained when we are discussing about it. So we need to be very clear with respect to political obligations, that political obligations are like unavoidable, and it is finally the political leader who is accountable. Civil servants are to follow the principle of anonymity. They are supposed to do good work as a teamwork, as a part of the system. Okay, you can make the people aware about all the interventions that have been created, but not glorify yourself or get into getting a targeted audience regarding what great stuff you have done. All right, so with respect to this given segment, can kindly mention the name of, okay, Chagla committee. So it is committee to nahi bola tha, commission bola tha, hai na? So you can think of Mundra scam. You can read about Mundra scam. You can think of TT Krishnamachari, Krishna, Finance Minister, FM, Krishna Machari. Keywords if you need. You can think of LIC money directed to Mundra shares. Okay, the TT Krishnamachari versus this was Mr. Patel, his finance secretary. Okay, and final onus of proof which was associated. So Chagla commission, and year is 1957. Fine, keywords. I hope that's working. All right. So with respect to this, when we are further raising the question, we can also take it to legal obligations. So under legal obligations, what happens? The civil, we can say that under legal obligations, we can consider that the person is tied down by the law of the land, the segments which are decided as per law. Again, under judicial obligations, so judicial obligations, you can start from article, we can say 32, 226, 299, 300, right? You can think of law of torts, you can think of evidence, right? Law of contract, all of it. So as a bureaucrat, you are supposed to follow specific set of laws when we are speaking of it. Okay, so with respect to this, when we are discussing about the judicial obligations, it is like you have to look into the concerns pertaining to what is unfolding as per the legal, we can say, adjudications which have been, or judgments which have been conducted in the past, and how it is guiding our present course of action. Also the existence of, we can say, evidence law, law of torts, we can say, the component of this law of contract. So all the CPC, CRPC, all of it, CPC kya diya, IPC, Indian Penal Code, CRPC, okay, Criminal Procedure Code, and you can think of all these possibilities which will guide the possibility of how to arrive at a specific judgment. So as a civil servant, if you are getting stuck that how to be more accountable, recall all the previous judgments that you have read in reference to your area of power. You'll, in your training period, you will be exposed to popular cases and how adjudication was done, how a person arrived at a solution, and then get inspired by that, get empowered with it, memorize it. When you are receiving similar situations, then you also can enact accordingly. All right, so in the light of the situation, again, there can be national obligations. So national obligations means you can never deny the interest of the nation state. Okay, you can never go against the sovereign state. Again, there can be democratic obligations. So democratic obligations can be associated with secularism, tolerance, equality, right? Then you can also connect it with professional obligations. So every profession has specific obligations, like a doctor's profession, or a lawyer's profession, or a teacher's profession. In the similar manner, a civil servant's profession, so it is guided by code of conduct. So you can connect it with the code of conduct related to every profession. Then you can connect it with moral obligations. So moral obligations are associated with, we can say, it leads to moral responsibilities, what a civil servant morally ought to do. Okay, so the problem is associated with how the decision is implemented. As I told you, moral obligation was the reason because of which Lal Bahadur Shastri submitted his resignation due to the rail accident. Moral obligation was the reason because of which we can see that Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel also proposed to give his resignation after Gandhiji's assassination, because he said that I am the home minister. I was already posted about the information that Gandhiji's life is under threat, and I was supposed to extend, like, security for his life. So I failed in extending the security, hence I would submit my resignation. So last but not the least, you can think of obligations to humanity. So obligations towards humanity, right? So that is something which you can maintain. Vivek, anonymity does not mean the person cannot enjoy his life. Anonymity means, I mean, you can have your personal life. That does not mean it does not mean that you start getting your pictures clicked and you become the hero, that I am doing this today, I am doing that today, this banner, this thing. I mean, like, it should not be about you, it should be about the work. So if you are making the people aware about the work, there's no problem. But if you are glorifying that I have done this, I have done that, you're no like political leader, that you are like harping upon sensationalism and you have to garner votes. Like your seniors, you are going to serve the system for another 30-35 years, along with all the juniors and seniors. The entire system is going to work upon the solution. So individual glorification, singham, male singham, lady singham, all that is problematic. Okay, that's why anonymity. Do the good work, don't try to lap up the, we can say, sensationalism and all the popularity. For that, political leaders are there. So know your place and work accordingly. All right, further. So ma'am, being anonymous is also comes under ethical behavior. Yes, Payal, that's why I discussed about it, like, this given segment, I had discussed about it in the chapter of values meant for civil servants. All right, now when we are discussing about it, what are the problems and what are the solutions with respect to accountability in civil services? Or in other words, I mean, like, this is the same thing, or we can say, why is it like difficult, so difficult to guard the guardians? Okay, so what are the problems? So why is it so difficult to guard the guardians, in other words? And what are the solutions if there is a problem, if it is difficult? So how to arrive at the solution, how to create the possibility of bringing accountability in civil services? Okay, so accountability in civil services, when we are discussing about it, the first point that you can bring in is special expertise. Civil servants have special expertise. Like, when we are talking about special expertise, they are the ones who are filling in the details of policies and laws. Like, we can see any policy or law that gets passed, okay, it is moreover in a skeletal structure, and the details are filled by details furnished by civil servants. That's what you can see. That is what happens. All right. So when we are speaking about the given situation, and when we are profoundly reflecting upon it, when we are, like, building upon this given insight, you can further see that it becomes sometimes very tough to surpass the agency of bureaucracy. There is such an airtight compartmentalization. The system is so structured. The bureaucracy is so, like, we can say, integrated, sometimes, that it becomes very tough to surpass their area of specialization. Like, for example, again, I can give you one more example, the administrative tribunals. Okay, so administrative tribunals, you can see, they are headed by judges. And who are the judges? So these judges are sometimes experts, And when these experts, who are these experts? Sometimes senior bureaucrats. Like for example, if I talk about NCLT, what is NCLT? National Company Law Tribunal. So National Company Law Tribunal. So with respect to this, you may come across the possibility that there is a civil servant who is looking into a specific level of, we can say, specialization, the civil servant who is capable to reflect upon what is happening and, like, what kind of interventions are required. So when we are talking about related to company law, there are officers nowadays who get selected as company law officers. It is a recent post. It is different from revenue services. Okay, I remember because one of my students had got selected few years back, and you people can also get selected. The future students who become IS officers or officers who serve the system. So who, like these people who are bureaucrats, over the time period serving under specific departments, they become experts. And later when they have to adjudicate a tribunal, when they have to find judges for a tribunal, sometimes these senior civil servants are made the officers. And when they are the expert, and if the expert ever goes corrupt, how can you cross check? How can you put a balance of power? So that is there. Specialization cannot be handled by everyone. Then there are limited experts. So that's the problem. Okay, you must have heard of the term amicus curiae. Amicus curiae is the expert who is giving his opinion or her opinion to the court, and the person is assisting in the process of law. So if tomorrow, like, let us consider amicus curiae goes corrupt, who is going to save the system, right? So the bureaucrat is the one who is, like, fulfilling the details and the duties pertaining to special types of expertise. If that is manipulated, if that is, like, contorted, it is going to corrupt the system. It is going to corrupt the due process of law. Anyway, second can be associated with information secrecy. Information secrecy. Okay, what is the solution for special expertise if this is the problem? So the solution, I did not mention that. So solution can be associated with skilled politicians, skilled, trained politicians. So suppose you want a health minister, let be a senior health specialist or a doctor be the, like, health minister. You want a finance minister, let a person who has a doctorate in economy and the person who has some exposure related to financial portfolio in the past become the finance minister. You want a law minister, let the person who has been a lawyer in the past become the law minister. So when the person who is already skilled becomes a minister, can keep a check over the bureaucrat if the bureaucrat is going corrupt or misusing power, abusing information, abusing knowledge, okay, to his or her discretion. Yes, that can be connected to clever evil. Very good, XY. You are able to connect with the previously taught concepts. Okay. Yes, you can talk about even the external minister. You can talk about so many people from the past to present related to it. Second point is information secrecy. So information secrecy, we can see that the bureaucrats, okay, I'm writing B for bureaucrats, okay. So bureaucrats have abused the tool of secrecy, the tool of secrecy to maintain hegemony, right? So that is something which has been created. How can we find a solution to it? So the solution can be associated with, we can say, CAG activism. We can think of RTI, right? We can think of इसको ऐसे arrow करेंगे तो ठीक नहीं रहेगा. Wait. So we can think of RTI. We can think of citizens charter, so that people are aware. So citizens charter, so that people are aware, informed, they are participating. You can also think of social auditing. Social auditing. you can think of amending the whistleblowers bill. So whistleblower mechanism, when we are talking about it, you can think of second ARC also suggesting to bring in something similar to False Claims Act of US. Okay, so False Claims Act of US. Okay, something similar for India, something similar for India. Okay, as suggested by second ARC. Now, what is this False Claims Act? Let me explain this to all of you. So, when we discuss about this False Claims Act, what is written below policy and law passed? Okay, maybe I am having a bigger screen, so I'm able to write very effectively. Now, the problem is this. So, skeletal structure. Let me, thank you, SME, you are able to read it and it is easy. It's just that few students, maybe their screen is small. So, skeletal structure. I'm writing it in this manner so that when you take a printout, then you are not struggling. Okay, skeletal structure. Fine. Okay. So with respect to this, and thank you, Yashab, for asking it, because if you ask, then only I can correct upon the possibility. So, False Claims Act. This False Claims Act, it came in news, especially after the intervention which was created by Dinesh Thakur. The Dinesh Thakur case with respect to Ranbaxy, like gained a lot of global, we can say, cognition and discussion and debate around the world. So, this Dinesh Thakur case can be connected with this. Like, for example, what happened? Let me share this with you. So, the Ranbaxy company, it claimed for patent revision, and it claimed that it has done some studies on the basis of which it is claiming the revision of the patent. And it also stated that the efficacy of the medicine on the shelf life of the medicine has improved. Henceforth, it was claiming certain benefits. Now, what happened was Dinesh Thakur first informed his seniors that the test has not been conducted. There are fake reports, faulty reports that have been fabricated and pushed by the company. If this comes in the limelight, it will be backfiring for the company. Worse of worse is, it is going to cost millions of rupees to the common people. It is going to tax them a lot of money, which is unethical, because if the test has not happened and we claim of the results and we are claiming benefits out of that, we can say imaginary result, it is going to harm the people in the long run. So Dinesh Thakur's suggestion was not adhered to by Ranbaxy. Ranbaxy tried to, the seniors tried to, in Ranbaxy, they tried to silence him. So Dinesh Thakur, then he went to the court. And after going to the court, he presented all the evidence. And as he was proved correct, because after that investigation was conducted, and as he was proved correct, it was found out that $500 million were saved. Okay, $500 million were saved because of that. So when this amount was recovered, so far the amount that Ranbaxy had made because of this false claim that it had made, so 500 crore dollars, oh sorry, crore I said, $500 million that was recovered. On that basis, the False Claims Act suggests that if you are able to prove that, as a whistleblower, you are able to prove that someone has committed a crime, 10% of the amount that is recovered from the corruption that has taken place, that amount goes directly to you. So out of 500, he was getting $50 million, and after paying taxes and all, something around $49 million is what he got, which is tremendous. After that, he resigned and he became a full-time whistleblower. He started finding cases, and that is how we can see activism, citizens activism, came into existence. So please understand, this False Claims Act is different from PIL. Okay, public interest litigation, if we are talking about it. Okay, because PIL, when you are talking about it, you are requesting the court to consider. In this case, False Claims Act, you straight away file the case. And if False Claims Act, something similar comes in India, a lot of unemployed lawyers will suddenly get employed, because they will be able to investigate upon cases. If they are able to prove the case correct in the court of law, they will be getting a lot of money, and that will keep them afloat. So that's also something which you can consider, like bounty hunter kind of. Okay, so when we are speaking about this given situation, we can also talk about the third problem with respect to it, that is full time status. Full time status and excessive security. Excessive security that is granted to the bureaucrats. Now, all of you know that a person generally does not retire before 60 years of age. There is excessive security. With respect to this excessive security, the bone of contention comes from Article 311. You know, Article 311 has been criticized and condemned by various commissions of the past. It first and foremost, after independence, we see that the request to repeal Article 311 was made by Hota Committee, then Santhanam Committee. Okay, then the first ARC also spoke about it. The second Administrative Reforms Commission is also speaking about amending or repealing Article 311. And then you can see the Sahakaria Commission is also connected to the challenges which are coming because of Article 311, because of which the bureaucrats become too powerful to be like checked, and prevention of corruption becomes tough. So nowadays we can see that there has been like a solution to this given situation of full time status and excessive security. What is the solution to this full time status and excessive security? Meanwhile, before Article 311 gets repealed or amended, okay, needs to be repealed. Please, again, special expertise is the lawmaker becomes the lawbreaker. Akhil, that's what it means. When the lawmaker becomes the lawbreaker, the person who's supposed to guard the law is the expert, right? So for example, let me give a simpler example, you'll understand, Akhil. Suppose you are going to you are crossing the traffic light, and suppose the challan has increased to 6,000 rupee, and the moment like you were abiding by the traffic light, you were wearing the helmet, you were driving properly, you did not like trip the line, you like crossed the red light properly. Suppose the traffic police still catches hold of you and says that and checks your pollution certificate, your DL, everything you think is prim and proper, but the traffic police comes up with certain other finer rules and regulations, because they really know the rules regulations, and you can see that challan has been cut for such funny reasons also. You can Google search on internet and you can find a lot of funny reasons on the basis of which challan is cut, and actually the challan slip is given. Okay, so what is at advantage of the traffic police? Legal awareness, because the traffic police is aware and citizen is not aware. So what happens? The citizen is like, why will you cut a challan of 4,000 or 2,000 or 5,000 rupees? How about you take 200 rupees or 500 rupees and let me go? What happened? Corruption happened. Why? Because one fellow was expert, one fellow was aware of the law, thorough with the law, and tried to abuse the law. Got it? I hope you are understanding it, Akhil. Okay. So with respect to this, when we are further moving ahead, we can also see full-time status and excessive security. When we are discussing about this given subsegment, we can connect it with like this is put to check. Okay, put to check with recent safeguards, recent safeguards, and you can think of lateral entry, and you can also think of compulsory retirement. Compulsory retirement. So what is lateral entry? Lateral entry, like it is like a CEO of a company, a president of a company, a person who's like really thorough in private sector is sometimes invited, okay, to join the services directly as a director, okay, director of a department. So you are not climbing up the ladder after 10 years, 15 years of service. You are directly becoming a senior bureaucrat. That is called lateral entry. So lateral entry is honoring what? Expertise. It is not compromising with expertise. Okay, so you are invited as a bureaucrat to serve for a specific tenure, so that expertise and skills come in bureaucracy. Okay, bureaucracy is not compromising with expertise and skills. Again, to do away with not so skilled people, to do away with those officers who are not performing so much up to mark, bureaucracy has come up with a solution, or rather the system has come up with a solution for bureaucracy, that is compulsory retirement. If I speak between 2016 to 2019, more than 150 officers were forced to take compulsory retirement. So after 50 years of age, their work is reviewed, and if it is seen that the work is not up to mark, the person is not so skilled, is becoming burdensome, in that situation they are encouraged to take compulsory retirement. Suppose the person is showing resistance that no, why should I take retirement, then it is also offered as a solution that because your work is not up to mark, if we, like, open an investigation, or if we review your work and write a bad report, and and you are forced to retire, in such a situation you will not even get like pension and other post retirement benefits. So it's better you take compulsory retirement and avail the benefits post retirement, rather than getting stuck in this given situation. So that has also acted in this given scenario. Again, massive expansion of bureaucracy. Massive expansion of bureaucracy. So, a fully grown bureaucracy is among those social structures which are hardest to destroy, as spoken by Max Weber. Okay. So, today bureaucracy is everywhere. When we see with respect to every department, every walk of life, every decision that has to be taken, somewhere or the other, it's the bureaucracy or the system that is running the possibility, right? So, like let us say when we are discussing about this given dimension, so what happened that a few years back, a clause, no, not clause, there was a like proposal, there was a proposal that was made that let us pass an act against those civil servants, or rather not against, I'm using incorrect language. There was a act that was proposed, or rather a bill that was proposed to like make it an act. So a bill was proposed for the civil services, that a civil servant should declare his or her property along with the near and dear ones, the family members, the extended family members, how much property they hold. When this bill was proposed, a lot of bureaucrats became very scared, to the point that they even speculated that how about taking a voluntary retirement so that we don't fall under the scanner. The bureaucrats, their lobby is so strong that in 2016, a lobby of bureaucrats who must have coerced upon the ministers because of their expertise, because of offering some expert solutions and advice, in exchange of it, what they actually got done was they withdrew the bill. This bill was withdrawn, like that a bureaucrat and should declare his or her property along with the family members, extended kith and kin, who holds what, that should be declared. So that was something that was taken in charge. So massive expansion of bureaucracy and not being able to regulate it, put it under check with respect to bringing transparency, that is definitely a challenge when we are speaking of it. All right. So with respect to this, when we are reflecting upon the same, what is the solution? So if we are talking about the solution is PPP model. It is like we can consider disinvestment, privatization. I spoke of privatization, remember, with respect to MTNL, Garuda and all. It was not a great move though. There could have been methods to improve quality. I still remember MTNL employees in 2017-18, they were struggling to pay the fees of their children. And later when Jio was launched, 6 months later, a lot of MTNL employees started complaining that even basic salary has not been given. So condition, became very bad. Blaming the MTNL officials is not the solution. Probably qualitative skill-based training or much more could have been done. Anyway, so PPP model, disinvestment, privatization, skill-based training and sensitization. These points you can think upon and you can propose. All right. Then you can talk about lack of coordination amongst various investigation agencies. Okay, so lack of coordination, lack of coordination between various investigation agencies, right? Recently, like if you remember that there was this scam that had happened in like Bengal, Sharda scam. You know, the culprits could slip out only like eel only because the bodies kept blaming each other, like Sebi blaming, like, you know, another body blaming another body, or they could have caught, they could have caught, they could have caught. The question is, we have CBI and we also have CVC. Can't we just integrate? And can't, why are they separate bodies? The question is this, like CBI, NIA, CVC, ED, CAG, CID, so many bodies are there, right? So can't we bring them under one umbrella? If they are brought under one umbrella, there will be integration of information. One website regulating all information. As per your seniority, you can just search and you can open and you can get to know the core of the information related to any individual situation or place, right? So we can see that the problem is associated with lack of coordination between these bodies. You can think of it CBI, ED, NIA, CVC, okay, CAG, CID, okay, all these bodies, okay, and even National Human Rights Commission, it also gets complaints that should reach to other bodies, all these bodies. So when we are speaking of this given component, lack of coordination is there, right? And when lack of coordination is there, it sometimes delays the possibility of solving a case effectively, and the real corrupt ones take advantage of the situation. So why not integrate them and put them under one roof, like Lokpal? Okay, so that's something which we are talking about. So meanwhile, what solution can be offered rather than saying that this given segment? So you can talk about information and communication technology. With that, you can improve like dissemination of information, spreading of information. Similarly, you can talk about e-governance, and you can also talk about in future having a single agency. Okay, single agency as the master agency, single agency heading them all, heading them all. You know, actually bureaucrats are very scared about this possibility, and even the politicians will be scared of such a possibility. Anyone who's corrupt will be scared of such a possibility, because if such an agency comes into existence which is integrating them all, it will be so powerful, and it can take down any government or any bureaucrat or any political leader. It will be so fierce to bring in transparency and accountability in the system. And its power will be like challenging a lot of, we can say, people who are surviving and thriving in the system for decades. So that's why they will never let such a system come into existence until and unless we have the youth joining the system, who are very upright, and the group of youth, we can say the possibility of the youth taking charge and command over the system in the world of politics, in the world of bureaucracy, and with accountable behavior, thinking about such a solution, only that can bring in a solution for future possibilities as well. Okay, now you can also talk about the sixth issue, that is associated with lack of political will, lack of political will and capacity. You can again think of orthodox loyalties people have in the system. Orthodox loyalties. What are orthodox loyalties? If you ask who is a bureaucrat committed to, even in case studies, when I was solving, few of you, when it was asked that, okay, who should be a bureaucrat, like in case studies, especially when mother is under threat, wife is under threat, life of family is under threat, the person like, what to do when my family is under threat? Oh, your first commitment is towards national interest. After national interest comes anything, whether family, caste, group, religion, this, that, everything is secondary to national interest when we are speaking of this given subsegment. Okay, so orthodox loyalties, we need to get over this. This will come with, the solution will be, like we can say, value based education. Value based education. In this also, when we are talking about lack of political will and capacity, this is also coming with sensitization and also choosing the right, choosing like ethical leaders, right? With respect to this, we can also talk about overburdened judiciary, overburdened judiciary. What is the solution? So solution is increase expertise, increase hiring, improve the infrastructure. So all of it can help to overcome the challenge pertaining to judiciary. Again, lack of public awareness, participation. So to increase public awareness, all the initiatives which you are aware of, which you will be aware of in transparency and information sharing with people in the next chapter, you can connect with that. Then you can think of apathy towards corruption. People accept that yes, if bureaucracy is there, then a bit of corruption will be there. So apathy towards bureaucratic corruption. You need to do away with that acceptance of corruption. Okay, so opposing against it, like raising the red flag, like making people aware, making the system aware, grievance redressal, all of it can come. Again, lack of choice among people, lack of choice among people to raise their voice, to raise their voice, to raise their voice. Most of the times, people are unable to raise their voice. Even if they are raising the voice goes unheard. Poor mechanisms of grievance redressal. So you need to fix, like the we can say online platforms where a person can file the complaint. It is public, where time bound addressal of the complaint is necessary. It is made aware to the person who has filed the complaint. Okay, so that is something which is required. Last but not the least, there has to be a balance between, as I had shared with all of you, accountability and autonomy. Accountability and autonomy. With that only, we can bring in autonomy in we can bring in accountability in civil services. We can balance the power associated with civil services. All right, I hope all of you are understanding that. In point fifth, such bodies should go with checks and balances approach. Agreed? Yes. So Anjali, no problem. You just try to understand, make key points associated with justice according to Aristotle, justice according to Plato. Yesterday also I had discussed, revisit the lecture, maybe listen to it twice, make the bullet points as I had suggested, and the problem shall be solved. So, ma'am, is it not an unethical behavior with our family and parents? No, because your parents and family know that you are committed to national interest. For the simple reason, Payal, why are you then going into the services? If tomorrow army man says that, oh, my first duty is towards my family, then nation, will it not be a problem for you, for your safety and well-being? If a doctor says my first priority is to be with my children and my wife, even if your relative is dying, my 9 to 5 job is over, then will it not create a problem for you? So you need to understand that what is the priority of every profession or job. All right, all right. So listen, I have to get up at 4:15 again. Tomorrow is also a hectic day. So I let me wrap up. It's already 8:36. All right. So let us wrap up. Let us meet again associated with it. Keep reflecting, and we will resume this given discussion tomorrow. All right. So SME, please support with minor queries because majority of the points have been sorted. Okay. So that's something which we can connect.